get this shit out the way.
Okay, great. Preparing to live stream the meeting. Setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. Good. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are Rizin podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I'm joined once again by my co host from The Focus Fights, Jay Christian Gary.
What's good, y'all? And it's not the Focus Fights, it's just Focus Fights. And
it is the
here.
One and only Focus Fights.
Yeah, of course. And we're also here with Charles Jewett of Sogokaku and Jack Wannan of Knockdown News. Charles is in Tokyo, Jack is in Toronto. Say hello, you guys.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up? I'm excited to chat Rizin, and hopefully we can assure viewers that this live stream will go start to finish. There will be no abrupt cuts during the discussion. You won't miss any of the topics we'll hit.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
The live stream reference made in the opening comment coming out right out the gate.
So,
yeah, we're pulling no punches here, CJ.
So yeah, there's many things I like in life. I like that the weather's for the most part it's nice today. It's 4th of July weekend, gonna barbecue, all that stuff. Jack, he's got his work of MMA prospects. Charles has got all of his deep and all of his Japan MMA regional coverage. Chris is babysitting his nieces. We all got things we like. I'll tell you the one thing I don't like is when my fucking main event turns off in the not even the second or third, right at the beginning of the first round. And that is what happened with Rizin 29. That is the first thing we're going to talk about live now, or as I call it now, replay now, because that's what it should be called. So during the Koji Taiju Shiratori main event, middle of round 2, maybe like a minute in, right after Taiju got kicked right in the balls, the stream died for everybody watching on live now. So Charles, you're the exception, though. You had a nice, perfect stream, so you got to see the main event. No issues.
It was great.
But Jack, Chris, and I all had to put up a live now, and supposedly the reason why is because it had a 6-hour time limit. The last time I remember ever hearing about time limits when it came to things was VHSs back in the 90s when you had SLP, SPLP, and so I can't recall any. The last time I remember a major event getting cut off, sporting wise, was WCW Halloween Havoc 1998, Hogan's main event, which
I think it's been more recent. I think there's been some weird UFC on Fox stuff that if it went too long and they had like a bigger game afterwards, they would switch it over to Fox Deportes or
really?
Fox Sports 3 or something crazy.
Okay, well, at least they had some.
But that's not pay-per-view. That's free TV. So
and at least they had an option to go over to another place.
Yeah, exactly.
Rizin, I guess legally, there was no option for that. So I was pissed off. I didn't get to see the main event until much later, until Rizin uploaded to YouTube. I don't know what else to say other than there's no excuse why that should be happening now, and I don't know if I'm assuming it's not Rizin's fault. I'm putting.
Andrew, you're basically saying that it should be Rizin's fault, when in hindsight, it really, really isn't. And it's great that Rizin put the entire bout, the Taiju Shiratori Koji Tanaka fight, on their YouTube with no commentary, because it would give, amateur commentators like you and I a chance to, try and commentate over the action as if we were calling the fight ourselves, not just, wonder how the English stream was going to go and, how the hell that Joe Ferraro and Damian Beatdown Brown were going to be able to try and commentate the whole damn thing with no way to get in touch with the English language or international audiences.
So that's what I'm going to ask you, Jack, because you were covering it live on Knockdown News. I wasn't doing it for MMA Soccer. I abstained that night. I mean, what were you thinking when that whole thing happens?
Well, it's just one of those things where when it happens, you just think, well, of course this happens. Of course, a night where we pretty much went without any technical issues. a wrench gets thrown in that plan at the very last minute. Look, I do want to say, credit to Rizin, credit to LiveNow. The transition to the service since New Year's Eve has been pretty easy, and I haven't had many issues with this service. I used to have weird issues with Fight, and I think it might have been through using the Chrome browser or something, where it would buffer a lot and it sometimes wouldn't work. It would be hard to watch streams. I haven't had any playback issues with LiveNow, stuff like that. The working theory we have is that there was a 6-hour cap on the stream, and I'm starting to think that maybe the idea was that this event would end before they hit the 6-hour cap. But this was, if we're working with that theory, which I don't even know if the 6-hour cap is true, they could have split it at intermission like they did with New Year's Eve, where they saw this could be an issue. They said, okay, we're going to split this into 3 parts. It's going to be 3 different feeds. And even though that was sort of a confusing concept at first, like why is this one show 3 feeds? It worked, I mean, pretty simply for everybody. There was no issues with that. But yeah, this was a freak accident, and people have good reason to be angry over it. But I don't know, like the whole thing was just sort of like a weird mistake in my opinion. It didn't seem like a huge like oversight by them. Whoever, I don't even know who you blame this on, and I don't know if the 6-hour thing is necessarily true. But yeah, the disappointment from a lot of fans who stayed up and were hoping to get their all-nighter paid off with a main event fight. I can totally understand why people were disappointed.
I do believe the 6-hour thing, and the reason why is because, like you said, is that whole splitting of like the New Year's Eve show, and I think one other show had that into 2-3 parts, whatever. So I think I do believe that. I think that 6-hour thing is, and also I think it cut off right at like 5 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds or something.
It does make sense, yeah.
I don't know whether Rizin knew that beforehand. I'm going to assume that they did, but for the fact that LiveNow, like, I'm not so sure why the 6 hours is the limit for their streaming service. That just seems like such a weird, arbitrary number. And it's interesting that you said you had fight issues. I was one of the people who never had fight issues for whatever reason. I never had any.
You say buffering. Fight, you mean like Fight TV?
Yeah. I never had any issues with Fight. I always found it to be the best service that they could have used other than their own Rizin Live streaming thing. I've had issues with LiveNow since the beginning, with the stream just like cutting out, just like stopping, and I have to go and put it back on my phone and then Chromecast it, all that stuff. Other people, LJ from The Fighter, she during the Hagiwara Renher Moto fight for New Year's Eve, it cut out during that fight for her, and she couldn't. I think she missed that entire fight. So I don't know. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe LiveNow is, I don't know, good in Canada or something.
Well, I do remember, now that I think about it, that there was, I think it was a universal thing that at some point during Rizin 28, the feed cut out for a couple minutes. Luckily, it was at a time where I don't think we missed a fight. We just sort of missed some walkouts. I think the thing is that LiveNow is, I don't know how new of a service it is, but it is a relatively new service. But the one thing that sort of makes me have faith in it is that they're trying to get really big programs on the service. I mean, when you look at the stuff they have on there, Rizin is honestly one of the smaller things they do. They're trying to get, big sporting events, and they're really investing in the online concert market. So my hope is that, that would make them try to get a really, really solid way of streaming.
I have a question.
Yes.
On LiveNow, were all of the entrance musics played, or some of them muted?
They were played. All of them played.
It's kind of half and half, because the audio for Brown and Ferraro was, the audio feed was so loud you could barely hear the entrance music for some of these entrances. And for sometimes I don't know why they do that. Like for other shows, you can hear the entrances perfectly, but this one, their audio feed was detrimentally louder, and I could barely hear the entrances. I can barely hear anything that was going on in the arena.
Okay, because some of the Japanese stream, some of the entrances were muted for copyright reasons, which I never quite understood. I mean, Japan's really strict about that. Like if you like watch any of like their Jewels and deep fights, they pretty much just mute all of the entrances.
Oh no!
Well, in the case of the deep fights, and I've been realizing this now, In the case of the deep fights, they just have their own little default entrance music.
I
They
love
mute it and they mute it and they play that music over it.
I love the default entrance music for
Oh.
Deep. It's just these
Yeah.
two themes for Red Corner and Blue Corner. It's like that
Yeah.
that little
Well,
like
they have
garage
actual
band
entrance
orchestra.
music. They have actual entrance music, but in the video they
Yeah.
mute it and they play those songs over it.
Oh, I was hoping that was actually
But
the entrance music
because
that they would come out to.
I didn't get to hear Imanari's entrance music, which was upsetting. So they muted it for some reason.
And actually, you know, the sad thing that sometimes that the audio was well, luckily Brown and Fra are usually quiet when Lenny Hart's doing her thing, so you can hear her. But like as soon as they start talking, like yeah, the entrance themes are like sometimes impossible to hear.
I was just curious if it was just like a Japanese copyright thing, like they just don't want to mess with it.
Fight TV though, there was never an issue. You could always hear the entrances perfect, clear as day, no issues. So yeah, I mean that's Fight TV was never an issue. Obviously, Rizin.
Who was the and this sort of shows like how quickly things slip my mind because I used to watch New Japan so much. But who's the wrestler who has this theme dubbed over every single event?
Oh, Togi
and it's always
Makabe.
dubbed over by and it's always dubbed over by extremely loud guitars.
Yes. I think that's Togi Makabe. He comes out to the Immigrant Song or a version of Immigrant Song.
It's gonna be rough, yeah.
New Japan has never been able to buy that one theme for whatever reason. So he will always be forever destined to come out to, I don't know, whatever garage band song that they overdub.
I like that instead of trying to drown it out like Rizin does, they just completely I don't know the technology behind it, but they basically like drown it out on the broadcast. They just play it over with music that they have no regard for making it not too loud for viewers. It's just way louder than anything else.
You can hear both themes sometimes when and so
right.
like it just sounds like noise, just noise coming right at you. There's no rhythm to it. But yeah, I was really like I was furious with this LiveNow thing. It also didn't help. It was like 5 a.m. when this happened, and it's like I thought it was just me. I thought like, okay, let me just restart. And I was like, okay, it's not working on my phone. Let me try my computer. Okay, it's not working on my computer. Let me try my smart TV app. It's not working. So I'm like, WTF? I go online. Everybody else is having the same thing. So I also was disappointed in their response as well because a bunch of people who Evil Sith said that he emailed or contacted customer support and they told them to keep refreshing or wait for the replay. I think that's kind of a shitty response to have, especially if you're a live, if your name is LiveNow. I thought that they should have responded much more. I guess
they should have responded with much more frequency. Is what you're trying to say, Andrew.
Or just a better response and just say watch a replay. Or
they should have apologized with tears.
They should have done a Gabby Garcia. They should have done a Gabby Garcia. They should have been forced to go into the Rizin ring. CEO of LiveNow should have been forced to. Charles likes that one. Going to the Rizin ring and.
Yeah, they did that twice. They did it Rising and shootboxing.
Oh, okay. Was it?
Yeah. I mean, come to think of it, what you're trying to say, they should. I mean, the CEO of LiveNow should go into the ring with clippers in hand and shave his head bald or something.
It's one of those things where if not enough people complain, they're just going to try to sweep it under the rug and act like nothing happened and just deny.
Well, here's the thing: the thing is, well, what does this do for like if somebody's like, you know, they bought to like the Rizin show, they either bought Rizin 29 or the little package thing. You know, what are they? You know, I'm going to be hesitant to buy the next show because it's like, yeah, your main event can go out. I'm assuming that they're going to be not dumb and not like. Let it happen again.
I think you're being hyperbolic. I mean, you have a We Are the Rising podcast. I feel like you're going to watch the pay-per-view.
Oh no, not me. Listen, if you, I would even.
Okay. You were speaking like the proverbial we. I thought you meant like yourself.
No.
Specifically.
Well, listen. Here's the thing. If I would say I would stop using LiveNow and just use a Rizin live service because I have had no issues. Legitimately, that's like the best one out of fights and LiveNow. It's been the best one. There's been no issues with the Rizin live stream. It works perfectly. I just wish it had a Chromecast option, but it doesn't. And yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, you get entrances that are muted, but then you also get the cool backstage interviews sometimes with the fighters with on the Yogibo seats or the stuffed animals or whatever They're
bean bags, actually.
They're very expensive bean bags if you've ever gone to the website.
How much are they? Like approximately.
Oh, they have ones that are like over $1,000.
Oh, that's absurd.
They have like a beanbag. They have like a beanbag sofa.
I hate.
You should really go to the website. It's pretty funny.
If I always get nervous when I go into an office and I see beanbag chairs, because then that tells me, oh God, it's one of those types of offices. It tells me I don't. It tells me that the CEO is probably an asshole if there's beanbag chairs.
I just feel like you couldn't get work done in a beanbag. I think it's meant more for relaxing than like working in.
I don't know. It just turns me off. Like it feels unoffice like, and it's just like I don't think it works. But yeah.
Well, actually,
it's the idea that if you create an area that's not like an office space, people can spend more time there and work more in turn.
Oh, so
it's not even a workplace; it's just like a living environment.
It's psychological, then, really.
But wouldn't you
always did stuff like that, but it never worked.
I see. But wouldn't you also think that somebody who invests a lot in beanbag chairs and beanbag sofas would not have a company CEO that's a bit of an asshole?
No. If you play Grand Theft Auto 5, you'll know that the tech CEO in that game is obsessed with beanbag chairs. If anybody's ever played that game, what do they call that? I forgot what they call it. They call it like Sitebook or something. They call it like some Facebook knockoff thing. But he has like an obsession with beanbag chairs, which is very funny.
Right.
But Christian, I didn't ask you. I want to ask you live now for you. Well, were you? Because listen, I had flashbacks to Halloween Havoc 1998, which I didn't watch live, but I knew I had friends who watched live, and they were like, "Can you that Sting and Hogan did not make them that they got cut off?" So
wait, was Halloween Havoc? Was that WCW?
Yep.
Yeah.
And their main event cut off right before Sting and Hogan were supposed to go on. They went.
Actually, it was DD. Yeah, actually, it was DDP and Goldberg.
Sorry, DDP and Goldberg. But yeah. So and then they re-aired the main event the next day on Nitro, so you got it for free. So there's that. So yeah, Christian, what do you think of this whole LiveNow thing? Were you as upset as I was over it?
Well, first of all, when it came down to the entire card, I was just completely drained out because who obviously was doing a lot of work for Focus Fights on not just the results, but gathering entrance music, I was already drained out from actually sitting there and watching the show because, there were very few finishes when it came down. I mean, there were finishes, obviously, when it came down to the kickboxing fights. There were absolutely zero in the MMA fights. But still, it was like when it came down to the main event, I'm not going to say I was more disappointed than I was pissed, because I really was pissed that I couldn't see the main event after sitting there for 6 hours and getting a little nap in between all the other fights, especially the start of Grand Prix, but I mean, especially the start of Bantamweight Grand Prix. But I would basically say that I was disappointed that LiveNow didn't get their things in order, when it came down to doing this, when it came down to, trying to make sure that the international audience got the main event in time. And Jack, you mentioned this earlier. You mentioned, who LiveNow was ran by, how old is LiveNow as a service. I have to mention it to you now. They're barely a year old. They just started back in August of 2020. They're owned by Asper Ventures out of Stockholm, Sweden, which is a pretty big name internationally. Well, not in the US. And yeah, they do care more about concerts and comedy specials and other things outside of MMA. Hell, this probably may be their first and only fight venture in the world of combat sports. Who knows if they'll even get another chance to redeem themselves after this, but still. when it comes down to LiveNow, we shouldn't really bash them for their hiccups, considering the fact that this is this is a venture that's barely a year old. But we should bash them for the fact that, this was just a hiccup, and in order for them to work next time, they need to get their priorities straight and make sure that the next time they do this, that they'll know beforehand how long these rising cards on average are supposed to go.
I'll say that it can never happen again. If this happens again, then it's LiveNow gets no they don't get a not guilty verdict. I'm after hearing you and Jack talk, I think I was a little bit. I've kind of cooled down a bit about it. I kind of feel bad for the people though who pay for the show and they maybe this is their first Rising show and they pay for it and that's what they get. I feel bad for the paying customer.
It reminds me a little bit when Invicta FC first started doing pay-per-views. I don't know if you guys remember, they ran into several pay-per-view problems on their first couple of events.
I remember that they were on Ustream, to be honest. Didn't they?
Yeah, they were, and Shannon Knapp responded to it much better. She refunded everybody, not just people that complained, but she made refunds to every single person. Because when you're first starting as a company, it's just that important that you have goodwill with the customer base. And if you just blow people off, it seems like a short-sighted response to how they dealt with it, kind of.
I definitely feel that they did not respond just telling people, oh, wait for the replay or wait, or keep refreshing. It kind of just sounds like it feels like don't bother us. It seems like a don't bother us thing when it really is your issue because you're the platform that's on.
I feel like the smarter move would have just been tell you what, we'll give you 25% off your next purchase.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just something like that.
Yeah.
Just show hey, you know what? We're new to this, but you know what? And it's so funny. I was talking with Jay Wolf. Literally, we were doing a Twitter safe space.
I remember that. You need to do these more often, Andrew.
And I'll just tell him, listen, I just don't like technology because I'm always worried about what happens when technology decides oh, we're not going to work today. And then this stuff happened. This stuff happened on this show. And also I'll say this as well. The show was 6 hours. I don't think this needed to be a 6-hour show at all. I don't know if anybody thought that the show was going a little bit too long. I think when I saw the 12:30 a.m., I was like, oh, so this thing is going to last till 4 or 5. And then it was already 6 a.m. by the time this.
I was kind of confused because I thought one of the rare perks of the non-Fuji TV card is you're oh, this means there's going to be a short to no intermission. This thing's just going to fly through. And then my theory, I didn't read anything on it, is probably that because of the tournament, they wanted Koji and Taiju to get an equal amount of rest time before the main event.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there was a lot of intermissions going on.
Oh yeah, with the Sakaki bar. Well, listen. Also, not to mention, with the whole LiveNow debacle, there was a whole bunch of other things just happened in the show that just it seemed like the show was somewhat cursed in many ways. In ring, there seemed to be a little bit of I'm not gonna say shenanigans, but it just seemed like a lot of bad luck was going on on this show.
If there's one more thing I can add about the LiveNow sort of situation is that earlier I feel like I sound like I was sort of jumping to the defense of LiveNow. I think it's totally justifiable for people to be outraged about this, but I do think there was sort of a tension boiling over situation because it was the compounding factors of it was people had spent a whole night watching MMA at that point, and they were watching a show as, like Christian said, a lot of people were sort of bummed out about how the card had went up to that point. But as somewhat of an optimist, I do think that hopefully LiveNow, being a huge company, can get better at handling these things.
I hope.
Well,
as Jack was saying, if they're mainly in the music business, it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't know how to respond to it, because in music, it doesn't really matter if it's live. I feel like people buy DVDs of concerts and they watch them all the time. But with sporting events, people, all they care about is live. Like that's what's keeping cable TV and everything afloat, is just live TV. It's what people want. They don't want to watch the game tomorrow. They want to watch it as it happens. And if you have to, their response to a sporting event is, well, you can just watch the replay. It's like,
it's like them being
fun.
like, you can we'll just upload the encore song, in 5 minutes, and people just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can just wait 5 minutes and I can get the encore song.
Or let's upload an entire concert onto a music sharing service like Tidal or Spotify or whatever, and let's have them pay out the ass just to get it. But I get what you mean, CJ and Jack, because obviously, Jack, you're way too young to remember this. Charles, you probably remember it more than me or Andrew, but I see you're coughing. Bless you.
Yeah, sorry.
But still,
I'm not that old.
I understand, but still, you guys probably don't remember this often, but there was a time back in the 80s, especially the early 80s, where the NBA used to have all their games on tape delay up until the 83 NBA Finals, the 84 NBA Finals, actually.
Yeah. Back when the NBA was dying.
Oh, yeah. Supposedly dying due to outside influences, especially drugs. But still, that's what sports fans care about. They only care about what's live and what's happening in front of them. I mean, if they didn't care about that, not only would cable TV not survive up until this day and age where streaming's the thing, but I don't even think live sports would be, truly alive, especially not combat sports, which have only been a thing for like, at least on this side of the Pacific, 25, 26, almost 30 years.
I like how I coughingly said that I'm not that old, but then I understood his reference completely and understand everything about it. But I will also say that this is kind of like a complaining that I really can't. I understand why people complained, but I also remember when it was like you just didn't see videos of Japanese MMA fights. Like maybe they got uploaded 3 years later by somebody that ripped a DVD and put it on some sketchy Russian website. But it's just impossible to find any of these things. And now the promotions are uploading all of their fights like a week after the events happen. So I think it really is like a golden age of accessibility for Japanese MMA. So my sympathy is somewhat muted with knowing that at least you get to see the fight.
I'll say that, listen, it just can never happen again. Like if this happens for a New Year's Eve show and the stream cuts off or whatever, then riots will happen in the street.
And this is going to become the We Are Pancrase podcast.
Exactly. This will become We Are Deep. This will become We Are Deep, Deep Jewels.
They have more shows. It'd be easier that way.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I just wish they would upload their shows 2 weeks.
I will say that I'd say that my response is muted because it didn't happen to me. I'm sure that if it was a fight that I was interested in, that's also part of my thing, was that like Koji Taiju wasn't necessarily a fight I was especially interested in. And so I was like, well, I mean, I guess if it would have cut out like during the Kintaro fight, I would have been like super pissed off. But Koji Taiju just didn't really have my interest. So it wouldn't have upset me that much.
I get it. No, I get it.
Plus, I kind of like, I already had a really good feeling on who was going to win that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all understand that, but as far as the future of our podcast go, as long as we are not the damn one championship podcast, then we'll be fine.
Speaking of running 1 million shows,
if we do like a ONE FC podcast, I bet they'll send us like a bunch of shit.
They
love paying off media people. Allegedly, I would never make that claim. I would never make that claim. I have heard people say through secondhand sources that supposedly and allegedly they have done things to pay media and influence them.
Listen, are you saying that all those Forbes articles that are written about how ONE FC is the future of MMA promotions or whatever are not being paid off? Of course not. Absolutely.
Listen, the farthest it went for me was I tried to get an early copy of The Apprentice show, and they didn't respond to that. So I'm not getting any goodies from ONE.
That's what I was wondering what you were talking about. The one, The Apprentice. Okay, I totally forgot about that.
That shows we still
tried to watch it too, and it's impossible to find. It's like on a Beema TV. It's on a Beema TV, and they only air it like at a specific time slot, and you have to pay to watch it on demand, which I refuse to do.
What's amazing though is there's someone on Wikipedia who like really loves like reality shows. They wrote like an extremely extensive synopsis of the entire season, and I like read it a few days ago, and it was pretty great.
So wait, do you have to pay like a subscription fee to Abema to watch it, or do you have to pay for just that individual show?
You can watch it on Abema for free if you watch it when it airs, but to watch it on demand, you have to have like a paid subscription to Abema, which I refuse to do because all their stuff's for free normally. I'm not gonna I'm just not gonna add another streaming service to the 6 I already have.
Yeah, and also here's the thing: if I wanted to watch it, even if Jack wanted to watch it, Christian, Bema is one of those things that doesn't take American credit cards. I've tried to like I know they've had some I think it was Shuto or like one of their MMA shows. I thought was like it was one of the
that makes sense.
shows. And I was like, oh, you need to subscribe to this.
Actually, I think it was more so K1 than Shuto, but that's the reason why I don't screw around.
One of them, K1.
A lot of Japanese sites are weird because a lot of Japanese sites want a credit card. I mean, first off, credit cards are fairly new to Japan. When I first came to Japan like 10 years ago, most like 98% of stores, we didn't take credit card. But they're still fairly uncommon. But online, they want you to have like a registered Japanese address most of the time. So it makes it like really hard to use a credit card if you don't have a Japanese credit card.
The most confusing one was the one that used to have the Dragon Gate shows. I forgot what that
Samurai TV.
No. It
Sky
was
Perfect
a service. I forgot what it was called, but you had to like put in your credit card. Sorry, Christian.
WrestlingBay.tv.
I don't. No. It was a Japanese thing, and you had to put in your credit card, and then you had to buy credits.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's one of those stupid ones where like, no, of course we won't let you buy the pay-per-view. You have to exchange your credit card for coins and then use your coins
for like
to pay
fake.
For the yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Before Bitcoins were a thing, and I tried to do it, and I think I bought like way more because I'm stupid. I totally forgot about the exchange rate. I bought way more credits, and I still had no idea. So like, there's some Japanese website that has like maybe like $100 worth of my money, and like I have like whatever the equivalent is, like 1,000 credits on that thing. I never use it because I could just never figure out the way to like actually use it.
On an unrelated note, in Canada, don't they have the Fight Network or something?
Yeah, they have a Fight Network on TV. I don't personally have it because it's like I don't really pay. I only get like the normal cable channels, but it has like a surprising amount of stuff. Like I don't know what they carry now, but they used to carry KSW. They used to air One Championship. Now it's just on YouTube, which is actually like extremely convenient. So if you're watching this, don't sign a deal with One because I really like the YouTube streams. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say.
I was always super jealous because that Canadian network was showing like Deep Jewels stuff. I think it was always on Jewels back in the day. But I think it was on tape delay. But I was still like, they get it. Like we don't get it in America, but somehow they have access to it.
I think that what they did was they would buy the feeds and then do English commentary so that it would meet like Canadian broadcasting standards. So they get like a certain percentage of Canadian programming on their schedule.
Actually, CJ, I think they do have the Fight Network in some parts of this country, the United States of America. It's
like
just
a Dish. Was it a Dish network?
Well, it's not on any of the major cable carriers.
Yeah.
And I think the only way you can really watch it, like I have, is through like Roku and stuff. But I'm hesitant to even try it.
I'm referring to like back in the day when I had no money and it was like, I'm going to go to a Hooters for 12 hours and watch the UFC and get a drink and a side of French fries, and the waitress is going to want to murder me by the end of the night.
Just don't stare at their chest too much.
Actually, you can find a few of those Fight Network deep fights. That's Shrek Sakine. One of his fights is on there where he's wearing the helmet or the mask.
Well, their YouTube channel, they're uploading all that stuff now. I'm talking like more like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, no, they still have that. They still have like a few of those fights from like those old fights from that they aired on Fight.
Well, I have the DVD box set, so.
Okay, yeah. So, it don't matter in that case. But yeah, that's enough talk about Live Now. Let's actually talk about this show, Rise 29, from the Rizin in Tech Arena in Osaka. 4,796 sold out, or basically sold out. And we can thank one man for that, and that man is named Koji.
Can I tell you a funny little note about that? Yes. If you bought your tickets through Koji, it also came with he set up a hotel package so that it came with a hotel room, and he arranged for transportation to and from the hotel to the venue. So as part of your Koji fan ticket, you got a hotel, transportation to and from the fights, and your fight ticket.
Did they come with the things that they were like slapping?
I'm sure it did.
The thunder sticks?
Thunder sticks, whatever they're called. I always noticed that for his fights, and then people thought like, oh, this is like a pandemic thing. No, I've seen for his K1 fights, whenever they're in Osaka, they always have that. That seems to be a Koji thing, is the thunder stick thing.
And it's a pretty common thing because a lot of times fighters for these promotions, like Deep, Pancrase, Rising even, they'll buy blocks of tickets and sell them themselves. And it's kind of one way to show the promotion that you're like a valuable fighter is you'll be like, give me 2,000 tickets. I'm going to sell those myself. And then they would make like little like gift bags with like a shirt or like a thing like that, little hit stick, and just hand it to all their fans, put them in the same section and kind of create a fan section. So you'll notice on Twitter before a Rising fight, a lot of the fighters will start posting like, buy a ticket in my fan section. And a lot of times if you get like the nicer ones, like they'll come with special goods for those people.
Oh yeah, for the Rising shows I've been to, I'll notice that there's like, when a certain fighter comes out, there's like one section that is going berserk for said fighter. I know when I went to the open when they had the tournament. Remember, Tenshin did the two shows back to back. Remember, he did the two did one fight, and then Sakakibara
he fought like the Ukrainian Taekwondo Olympic athlete guy. Then he fought the guy from Hawaii.
Yes,
in the MMA fight. Yeah,
and like I could tell which were the Tenshin sections because there was just. It was like, oh, that section had like all Tenshin towels and all that stuff. And that was before.
It's all the same. Like with like I did it for like Kana Asakura one time for a Rising show. Like her dad was there at a desk. You just went there and you handed each fan a shirt and you got your ticket. So it's just something that they do. So I guarantee you those hitting things were part of the things they got with their ticket.
Come to think of it, when it came down to those two Tenshin fights, wasn't it actually a Ukrainian and a guy from Colorado that he was facing?
It might as well have been. That
thing was so sketchy because, I mean, it was like I was at the fighter hotel hanging out, and that guy from Colorado was just in the lobby. And then like Tenshin beat the Ukrainian guy, and after the fight got the microphone and was like, let's do another fight tomorrow. And because remember, it was like a surprise. It was like, oh, Tenshin did so good, he wants to fight again. And they're like, oh, we don't know if we can find an opponent. I'm like, dude was in the hotel yesterday. This guy's been
That's
hanging
how
out.
they found him. He was in the hotel.
This guy's been hanging out for 2 days at the Rising Fighter Hotel.
Exactly. That's how they found him. He happened to be there on vacation or on a business trip, and they asked this gentleman, oh, from Colorado or Hawaii, hey, you want to fight? And
I missed my chance.
You're at the wrong place at the wrong time, Charles.
Yeah.
You just happened to be on vacation cutting weight, as you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. And had his gear with him as well.
What were you doing your first couple of days in Tokyo? Just hitting the sauna, a lot of sweating.
Yeah.
But he probably thinking, hey, Mikey Ruckus gave me this entrance theme for me to come out to. I just don't know if I'm gonna fight or not. Guess I've got to make good use of it.
Overall, though, the show itself, Rise 20, I thought was an overall good show. Charles, you were watching it live. I'm assuming you said Japanese, so Japanese commentary, all that stuff. So you got to hear who was on Japanese commentary for this? I forgot.
TK.
Oh, yeah. So
it was. And they had the one I forget her name. Like the one Rising ring girl that's like kind of become an actress now. She's been in the special videos. She went camping with Horiguchi and Hamasaki.
Oh yes, she's like trying to be the Ariel of the UFC. I think she's like trying
she's kind of like elevating above the Rising right now. She's in a movie on Netflix, on Japanese Netflix. I don't know if it's on USA Netflix, but she's becoming like a bigger deal. So that's why she's in stuff. And then they had the Rising brand ambassador, the other lady, who was is with Sakakibara in his videos.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't have Megumi Fuji because there was no women fights. I think TK did most of the commentary though. That's what it sounded like.
What do you think of the show overall, Charles?
I don't want to be too negative. I feel like we mentioned it before. There's like the kind of Rising 28 hangover effect where you'd have to do one hell of a card. Especially it's like so close to Rising 28, and you still like riding that Rising 28 high, and then Rising 29 comes around, and as Christian alluded to, none of the MMA fights were finished. It was all kind of decisions. There were some exciting fights. Doesn't mean there were still some exciting fights, but I also really prefer MMA to kickboxing in general. And this just had started out with a lot of kickboxing fights, and the people I was watching it with too, it wasn't just me. I feel like they're kind of less interested in the kickboxing, and whenever the MMA fight come on, they got more excited into it. But that might just be because some of the kickboxing fights were lesser known fighters. I think they were interested in the Taiju and the Koji fights, but not the other ones so much.
I know you said that like Rizin's kind of like there's Rizin Tokyo and Rizin Osaka, and it seems like when they go to Osaka, it seems like they almost feel obligated to put on more than 3 kickboxing fights. It just seems like, well, we're in Osaka, we gotta put on kickboxing fights, because I think for every Osaka show they've had like 3 or 4 or 5 kickboxing fights, and then the MMA matches. I'm
Koji and Tenshin aside, I've always felt like they do kickboxing matches when they don't have enough MMA fights to round out the card.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, we can always find some kickboxers and slap together like 6 extra fights for this to kind of pad it up a little bit.
Let's find 6 guys from Bomb or Heatwave or or what, or NJKF or something, or Rebels.
My thing was just there's so much kickboxing in the beginning. It just took me a while to get into it, but once the MMA fights happened, I got way more excited.
Jack, what did you think of the show overall?
I mean, similar to what Charles said, it was sort of inevitable. There was going to be a fatigue here 2 weeks after an event. I mean, realistically, in my opinion, just speaking from, knowing what the audience over in North America is going to be like, to pull an all-nighter 2 weeks after you pulled an all-nighter to watch an MMA show, just that alone, you're going to be pretty fatigued by the end of it. You're going to be pretty much like, okay, I need a break from Rizin, and we'll get to it later. But luckily, we're actually going to get somewhat of a break from Rizin. Their next event's all the way in September. This event, it started pretty strong in my opinion. That's sort of the reception I got. But then I feel like right as the intermission hit, we sort of hit this wall where the fights started going the distance because we had all the MMA fights, and the enthusiasm from the public just sort of fell off at that point. It's easy to sort of Monday morning quarterback these matches and say, oh, well, when you look at these matchups, it makes sense that it didn't produce an amazing fight. And we could say that. And I personally sort of feel that way, but like you run that risk with any event that something might not go the way you want it to, not just the result, but just the entertainment value of the fight.
I think that Charles made a good point that about this, not being on Fuji TV. So why have the intermission? I totally get that. I actually watched the Pancreas 322 show straight through, and Pancreas, other than those little commercials, and then I think they replayed one of the fights right before the post limbs, and even when the post limbs happened, they're basically saying, listen, we're having post limbs, feel free to go home if you'd like. So you don't need to necessarily pay attention unless you want to see the Neo Blood, whatever.
Unless you want to see Tiger Date win by KO.
Tiger Date.
What are you trying to say? Leave the building so the fighters can fight in an empty arena?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's what the postlims are for.
That's what postlims are all about.
Yeah. So I also think, I think it would have helped if the show didn't have an intermission, 20-minute intermission. It just like went straight through, and it would have just felt like better paced. Sorry, Charles, go ahead.
This event just had like a lot of shit happen in the beginning of it.
General.
They kind of like threw a wrench in it. Like the Koji fight in the very beginning was just like, oh, this is going to be a weird event.
Christian, what do you think of this show overall? And we'll get into the fights right after you say your piece.
Overall, when it came down to the MMA fights, there were some firefights and there was some excitement to go around. But other than that, when it came down to the end decisions of these fights, they were pretty underwhelming. They were just, I don't know what to say about a card that's just basically all decisions for your MMA fights. But if it wasn't for the kickboxing bouts, and this is probably going to be the only time I say this about a Rizin card that features kickboxing. if it wasn't for the kickboxing bouts, we wouldn't be interested. And I think y'all probably have to agree with me on that, because all those kickboxing fights on that card, especially the final that we didn't get to see here in the US and in Canada and throughout the English-speaking world, you know, we felt probably that the kickboxing bouts were way more exciting than the MMA bouts, sans the one fight that didn't happen where Yusaku Nakamura got to speak his piece. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, actually, yeah, but actually, you know what? Since we're going to talk about this card, let's talk about the fight that didn't happen. The one, I think, probably the first domino that caused this weird overall this card to have weird things happen. Yusaku Nakamura, Daichi Kitakata not happening because Kitakata had some sort of, I guess, Charles, did you find out like it was a weight cutting thing, or was it just some illness that he got? The
details I saw was that just like the doctor wouldn't let the fight go on. So if something happened backstage where the doctor canceled the fight, which makes me think they had a hard time recovering from the weight cut personally. Mm-hmm. But I haven't read any details about what happened now.
So interestingly enough, they had the fight in the VTR, like the beginning VTR. Oh, that's the other thing as well. Can we just say how awesome those anime comic book intro things are? I want to see that for every show. I think that's like one of the coolest ways to just like begin a show. Anybody agree, disagree?
Oh yeah. But can we just say like the thing you do in this situation is you just ignore the fight and act like it didn't happen. You don't have the guy march out to the ring and address the crowd. It's just like shining a spotlight on the failure that just happened.
So when they played the VTR for this fight, I was like, wait, is there something going on here? Are they gonna like
I was
have
confused
like, a
too.
Fight? Well, because here's the thing, this is Rizin. It would not surprise me at all if they were gonna have like a surprise fight or something. And then he then went on Yusaku Nakamura was like, sorry, I can't fight, yada yada. Hey, if you guys need somebody in the kickboxing match in the main event, please let me know. And I thought, oh shit, I could see Rizin actually doing that. Like if like putting him in the main event because Koji can't compete for whatever reason. And then like we have shades of what happened to him versus Tension. Hey, I give him credit for like saying, hey, put me in the main event. I would not have recommend that for your future health, but I mean, it sucks. It sucks we didn't get the fight. Do you think they're going to run this fight back again at some point? Maybe for the Saitama show, Charles? You think they'll try this again, or?
I mean, I don't know what your guys' opinion is. This isn't like a high-profile fight, in my opinion. And if they have an open slot, they'll probably put it on there. But I feel like the September card is going to be quite full already because they have to put all of the other fights on it. So I feel like, I mean, this is like a very low priority fight to go on there because they've already, who do they have coming in there? Ayaka Hamasaki come on the ring. She's going to be on the September card. And they had Kleber Koike come in the ring. So there's going to be those two title fights.
It was
Satoshi, I'm sorry. It was Satoshi.
They look familiar. They look similar.
That's the same gym. And I'm secretly a racist towards Brazilians. They all look the same to me. No. And so they have those two title fights already. Plus, then they have to do. Are they doing the tournament quarterfinals? What's going on in September?
That's according to Wikipedia. So
so it's just like that card's already completely stacked. Like,
they
have room for that.
I wouldn't be surprised if they put Saito on it as well. Depending on his health.
Let the eye heal up.
I also wouldn't be surprised if they put Yoshinari Nadaka on the card because there was supposed to be, and I seen this on a tweet from somebody that's supposed to be a source for this promotion. Well, one of our trusted sources, I think, that Yoshinari Nadaka was supposed to face off against Pet Shilla for a WBC Muay Thai title on the September show.
What was that name again? I'm sorry. I did like a bubble when you spoke. On my end, at least.
Shilla. I think he's a Muay Thai fighter from Thailand.
Oh,
wow. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I guess but the reason why I think they might run it back is because remember that Reina, Samantha, John, Francois fight that was supposed to happen? And then they went back. I didn't think they were going to run that fight back because I figure, why go through the trouble of getting this French lady back, twice.
But Rena is a much bigger deal than either one of those fighters, at least for Fuji TV ratings.
That's true. But I listen. I thought it was cute that they had him come out.
I think
sorry, go ahead.
They might put it on. They might put it on there. Don't quote me on that. But I'm just saying the September card already sounds full to me.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
It can be on the Postlands.
Yes, it'll be on the Postland. That should be.
Sakakibara hinted that they might do something in August. He wants to do like a smaller show maybe in August. So
that seems sort of like a half-baked idea, though. He was like, "Oh, we're like throwing ideas around." Like,
listen. Verizon said they're going to do 1,000 things before this pandemic, and I think other than the Tokyo Dome happening, I think none of them have happened. Like literally.
How dare you? Mega is happening.
Mega
is Credible is going to be there giving out financial advice. Steve Aoki is going to be doing the music. It's going to be a great show.
Steve Aoki will debut the new Rizin theme.
Oh no, don't let Steve Aoki fuck up the epic Rizin theme. Please don't.
If I can say one thing about this canceled fight, it's that Rizin tends to have a pretty good track record of maintaining cards the week of. So one fight falling off this card wasn't a big deal to me. I mean, I'm so accustomed to tracking UFC shows where it's like, okay, well, 3 fights got canceled today, and 2 of them are because of weigh-ins, and 1 fighter got COVID. So now it's like a 9-fight card. That happened 6 times in this last year.
Whenever Nico Montano is scheduled for a fight, you can pencil in that it's going to be canceled.
Yeah, and but when they did the walkout thing, just from, and this is sort of a selfish perspective, but from a reporter's perspective, I thought, oh my god, did I mess something up and say the fight's off but it's not off, and am I about to have to issue a whole retraction of okay, well, apparently the fight is on,
Oh yeah, it was like a Mandela effect. Did they actually cancel the fight? What timeline? Oh yeah, I know. Was
the Rizin account gaslighting me?
Yes, it's psychological gaslighting. I don't know. I thought it was cool that they had him come out and do a little promo for the hometown crowd. Even though it threw us off, and I think it was kind of listen, we paid for this VTR, might as well just show it. Might as well come out. He's here in the hotel. He's right across at the whatever hotels from the Marathon Hotel or Arena. So yeah, let's have him come out and just address the crowd. Way
more cynical than you. My whole thought process is that we got to stretch this out because Koji and Taiju demand to have this much time to rest. So we go out there, sing and dance, and entertain the crowd, and we'll drag this out until they're ready.
I will say, event. One thing that was funny to me is that 1, he was in full outfit with gloves and everything, and 2, yes, before he entered the ring, he took a sip of water as if he was actually about to fight. He was really going through all the motions possible.
I thought that was I was dying when he took the sip of water. I wonder. And then Matt, he should have they should have even done the introduction. When they say Ao corner or Aka corner, whatever corner he was in, just for shits and giggles. I think.
That would have been hilarious.
Listen, UFC doesn't do that. If a fight's canceled day of, they just stay in the hotel or whatever. So I thought it was cute. Actually, Charles, I want to ask you this as well. Have you noticed how they're doing the weigh-ins for Rizin? I don't know if Deep does this as well, but they're having the fighters come in separately, and then they edit the footage to look like they're actually facing off.
That's got to be right. That's just got to be COVID protocol, right?
It's so stupid. I
didn't see that. I didn't watch the weigh-ins. I just look at the pictures.
Does it look like the KSW tale of the tapes where both their green screen footages are them pointing at each other and stuff?
Well, yeah. Well, the thing because that's the thing is that I know I'm trying to remember which fighter it was. Maybe been Imanari and Kirikana. I guess Imanari if they try to do combine it so it's like an intense stare off, but Imanari is a foot shorter than Takizawa. So they look like that they're at the same high level, which they are not, obviously. It's really dumb.
It must have just been a COVID thing where they were like, hey, we do this thing to make it look like there's a face-off going off, even though we're not doing those.
But we have in the chat Haitian and Dub. Haitian says lack of action fight overall, and Dub says a lot of people say 2009 was the worst Rizin event. I have to agree with that. Well, here's the thing. The worst Rizin event for me was Rizin 12. And here's these two shows had a very similar beginning where the opening kickboxing fight went to a draw. And we'll just quickly talk about these 2 prelim matches Yuma Yamahata, Kyoto Takahashi, one half of the Takahashi, I should say 1/3 of the Takahashi brothers, one half of a Takahashi brother on this card. Draw majority, and then shootboxer Seki Ueyama defeating Jose Izumi, TKO 3 knockdowns. Panel.
Rising,
Round TKO, by the way.
Rising 12 was a bad. I'm looking at that now. Rising 12 was a bad
And
card.
the beginning show opening fight was a kickboxing match that went to a draw. So we're seeing a similar trend. We're seeing a very similar trend. But anybody from the panel have any thoughts on Yuma Yamahata and Takahashi, brother number 1? I'll start with you, Charles.
No, I mean, it was a fun fight. I mean, you just kickbox. I mean, a lot of the kickboxing fights were fun. Like, you didn't have to know who people were, and they were all trying to make a good impression, I felt like, on the fights. So I have nothing special to say about this fight in particular.
How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I don't. All of these opener kickboxing bouts, I thought that they were pretty solid. Like Charles mentioned, that these guys were really trying to prove something. But I don't have much to say besides that. I like having these kickboxing fights to open the card because it really flies by, just based off the fact that if it doesn't end by stoppage, it's only going to go 9 minutes as opposed to 15 minutes. So when you put these at the very front of the card, it makes for kind of a very quick, snappy start to a show.
I'll say one thing. I did not like they both had the same straw hair. So I had to keep track by looking at their their gloves.
Glove tape.
Yeah. The little tape, the little red tape or the blue tape in the gloves not to get them confused. Christian, any thoughts on this opening fight?
Well, first of all, how can you bash Rizin 12 when 8 of the 12 fights on that card ended in a finish?
I did like the Murata Von Flue choke. That was awesome. But
I think that was like the one finish, and then Yachi losing to basically his hair. That's what happened. That fight.
Exactly.
His hair.
That show also had a really good kickboxing match with Kaito. Where the third round they were just like throwing everything at each other.
But he had a better kickboxing match at Rizin 11 where he just kneed Onibozu right in the face, and Onibozu just went like. But
still, you guys, when it came down to the first 2 bouts, I mean, obviously the first bout, Yamahata versus Takahashi for Rizin 29. It left me feeling not disappointed. It's just, they could have done a hell of a lot more to excite us. As far as the Seikiwa Yama Kiyosei Izumi fight, oh yeah, Ueyama got it, so to speak. Because Ueyama just basically dominated Izumi for that entire first round and then just wrecked his shit for the entire second round, or at least the time that was allotted in that second round. I mean, kind of think of it when it comes down to Ueyama, who do you think is next for him, even though there's not much we know about the Japanese kickboxing scene? If you put all 4 of us together and say, who's the best Japanese kickboxer today outside of Tenshin?
What do you think, Charles?
Took away my answer.
Who would do you have any ideas who you would put him up against?
So what? I mean, he's fun to watch, but I don't think he's like necessarily high level. He like wins and loses kind of on a rotation. Let's put him against Taiga. Put him against a bang. Are they the same weight division?
No, I think he's about 10
pounds
higher.
Yeah. He's higher. Let me take a look.
You can still do it at catch weight. I mean, there's no law that says you can't. Look at how Rizin's booked some fights in the past. They're not bound by weight.
In this fight, what is he's breaking a 3-fight losing streak with this win?
I think so.
Just put him in there with a fun fight, because he seems to like to throw down and try to get knockouts. Put him in with a guy that's not going to defend.
Jack, what about you for Ueyama? What would you like to see done with him, if anything?
Put him up against that guy who on 2019 New Year's Eve would do the motion where he'd like pretend to take a sword out before he would throw his right hook.
Oh yes.
But I don't really have an opponent in mind for him, but I would say like he should come back to Rizin. I mean, he had a pretty dominant performance, and
the EI, right?
Sorry?
the EI fighter. I think it was Haru Machida.
Yes, Machida.
Right.
I think we're all in agreement that Yama is definitely rising worthy, and
It was exciting, yeah.
He's a fun to watch guy. What about Izumi? What about unfortunately Josei Izumi?
Hell no, he's not rising worthy. He got dominated, and you don't want a fighter to come back to a promotion if they already gotten dominated beforehand. You know.
What about you, Charles?
I mean, I feel like the rest of the year's fights are kind of already penciled in, so to speak. And so, like, if you want to do another kickboxing thing, that's great. Let him go back to Heat and win a couple fights. If he wins a couple more fights, you can bring him back. But there's no rush to bring him back. They have a bunch of kickboxers already, and the MMA fights are going to be dominating the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. That's exactly what I was going to say. How about you, Jack, for Josei Izumi?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a spot for him on a show, put him on a show. But I'm not buying into the Izumi stock.
So here's a little funny joke. Yuma Yamahata said that if he won this fight, he would like to face Koji next.
Ain't happening.
Do it.
I think. Well, I mean, based on what happened in the main event, I think you kind of have to. Or if you want to give Koji like an easy. Here's the
Koji has to win.
Yes.
They need Koji to win. Like they don't need him. They don't need him to like beat anybody. They need him to win. Like they need to like just scoop up a homeless person, push him into the ring, and let him win.
It's kind of like, so you heard about this Sean O'Malley's most recent fight announcement. It's like some guy who's like 9-4, like from the regionals, and like that's
Chris
like
Morquinho, who fights in LFA or used to fight in LFA.
I'm not, here's the thing: if you're an LFA, you're a good fighter. But let's be honest, they're getting this guy in there because they want to give Sean O'Malley land. It's kind of like when Valentina Shevchenko fought Priscilla Kohara. And they're like, we just need her to fight somebody so we can get fight footage, for her.
Are you familiar with Megumi Sugimoto in Shuto?
A little bit, yeah.
She's the wife of the owner of the gym AACC, and her last opponent is now 0-8 at Shuto. So
listen, eventually you can win. Listen, if Kuya Ito can go like 0-5 in his first few fights, listen.
That's your Shion and your Ito cases. You got to overcome.
Oh yes, we'll definitely talk about that. But I think Charles, you said it best. Listen, if they need Koji to win, I think Yuma Yamahata is like the best fight that they can do at this point, or at some, because listen.
And if Koji loses to him, you just put him down and bury him in Osaka. You're like, we got all we could out of him. Bye bye, Koji.
Yes, no more. We're gonna stop spending all this money on you that we word you in for from K1.
I know we spoke about it last time with the Gustafson and Rumble Johnson fight, where like the arena just felt like you had just like public executed their hero right in front of them at 2 a.m.
Yeah,
and combat sports is so unique, and like the hometown will all come out and they just watch their hero get destroyed, like just get dominated.
It's like the opposite of what happens in Brazil when a Brazilian loses. It's like you cannot shut the crowd down when a Brazilian loses. It's like in Europe, or I wouldn't say Japan. Japan doesn't happen, but in Europe, like when their guy loses, they are shocked and there's like, yeah, the air comes out. Brazil, they riot. Big difference. Japan, it's like, oh, the foreigner or the non-Japanese guy won. We'll still clap. We'll internally hold our disappointment, but we'll show outward generosity or whatever.
I feel like the deflation can be best compared to like when a away team in baseball hits a home run, where people don't even boo. It just becomes absolute silence as they go around the bases, because there's really nothing to even boo there. It's just like, okay, well, you just hit a home run against us. That's fair play. But just actually, disappointment.
When a game winner happens, when it's during play, they just throw the damn ball back into the field of play.
Maybe hockey. I don't know. Maybe there's a better hockey analogy. If you can use Jack, I don't know.
Fans definitely boo when the away team scores in hockey.
We just throw octopuses on the ice.
But we're gonna talk about like an actual legitimate I guess murder, or almost close to murder with Dr. Yasunari making a modern art masterpiece out of Chikai's nose. Actually, it wasn't that. I didn't think it was broken because he wasn't bleeding initially, but apparently it was a broken nose why this fight was stopped exactly 1 round. Yeah, so I don't know who else you put against Nadaka because I think he defeats 10 out of 10 opponents. So I don't know. Charles, what do you think about Nadaka in this fight and what his future is in store for Rizin?
Oh, I will say I expected a dominant victory. I was predicting a three down referee stoppage, and got the doctor stoppage instead. But feed him local Japanese fighters till the pandemic's over. Fly over some Thais after that. There's a bunch of small people in his division over there, and Japanese people will love that. And just have him fight a bunch of Thai fighters from now on.
How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rizin are doing the right thing in the sense that they're clearly building him up. It's amazing how active he is. I mean, you can compare it to a prime Tenshin Nasukawa, how he is fighting in Rizin frequently and fighting outside of Rizin frequently. That's sort of besides the point.
I think he has a fight right now. I think he's fighting right now as we speak for Bomb or
and
how it's a Bomb show. It's later tomorrow.
Oh, it's later tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say how horribly this podcast would age if we get off the call and realize that, oh my god, he just got like knocked down 3 times in 1 round, and we have to retract everything we said.
Some 1 in 10 regional guy.
Pull the pod.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take a safe bet and say that won't happen. I would say the same thing as Charles, that give him what you can while you can in the pandemic, and then after that, kind of go from there. See, okay, what are the big fights we can make?
Christian, what do you think of Nadaka and how awesome is this guy every time he gets in the ring? I'll also say as well, I love that he fights so different every time that we've seen him fight. He always does something like he approaches the fight differently. That's why I love him. But sorry, Christian, go ahead. What do you think about
yeah, I think every time Yoshinori Nadaka steps into that ring, he's phenomenal. He's a sight to see. He's something to behold. And it's like every time he gets these knockouts like this, I mean, it is a reminder that, yeah, tension's about to go away, but still, at least the world of Japanese kickboxing, the world of J-kick, so to speak, is in good hands when you got talent like this blowing up the scene. And in the case of Chikai Izuma, Nadaka just higher first round to the point where Chikai quit on his stool. I mean, I think the doctor stopped it. I think the doctor said, let me finish, Andrew. Oh, sorry. Just imagine if Nadaka were to reach Tenshin Nasukawa type of levels later in his career. We could potentially be talking about the greatest kickboxer to ever come out of Japan, under 170 pounds, which I guess that was wasn't that the weight limit of Masato, or was he 155?
You might know.
He would have been. Masato 170 sounds kind of heavy, to be honest, because he fought Kid Yamamoto, who wasn't 170.
I see. But still, point of the matter is, we could be talking about.
He was 155. Yeah.
Oh, right, of course. But yeah, like I said, with Yoshinori Nadaka coming in as tension is going out, we could be talking about the future of Japanese kickboxing here.
Sorry, Christian, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I don't think that Chikai, I just wanted, correct. I don't think Chikai quit. I think the doctor said, your nose is broken, homie. I'm not letting you fight. Just because, listen, he didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, he definitely didn't quit. The doctor saw his nose was in the wrong place.
So his nose was like a broken Picasso painting.
Which I didn't think, I think it was an elbow that did that, but here's my big worry though with Nadaka. I am so worried, and so I know Tenshin said he's going to have his Rizin final fight in December, assuming it's not Takaru, assuming it's not Taiga. My big nightmare fight is that they're going to do some weird exhibition thing with him and Nadaka, kind of like a passing of the torch, whether that's like boxing or whatever. Charles, you're shaking your head. I think you disagree that they're not going to do something like that.
I don't think so. trying to put logic in what Seikiwa decides to do doesn't work, but there's no benefit to it. It's just Tenshin either loses before his boxing debut, which looks terrible for him, or this guy loses, which destroys the guy that's the new face of your kickboxing, which looks terrible for you. I say they would probably give Tenshin's last fight kind of like a Taiga or like a legend or like a famous guy that's a little bit past his prime so that he can win and then transition to boxing.
See, that's the thing. There's not sometimes a lot of logic that goes into how they book.
Oh, the Mayweather Tenshin thing is like the exhibit A, B, Z.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why it does not, like, if we get word that like Tenshin versus Nadaka and like some special standing rules bout whatever match, or listen, I'll be like, I'm not surprised. I'll be like the Nate Diaz. I'm not surprised, motherfucker. So yeah, that's my big worry. Do you think that Rise will take interest in Nadaka? I know there's really not a division like that in Rise, but do you think that they would try to make a division around him?
Are you asking me?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, because I know they're doing the 55 kilogram tournament, and I know you're a little bit more familiar with Rise.
I don't think they would, because Tenshin is very much a kickboxer, where Nadaka seems very much into Muay Thai. And Bomb, which goes on tomorrow, is a Muay Thai rules organization that, speaking of Tenshin, has Saya Ito, who's a girl that fought Tenshin and beat him when he was a kid, but that's unrelated. So I think he's very obsessed with, like, he loves Muay Thai, obviously, and Rise doesn't have those rules, so why would he fight for them? But it would be good for his career, because Rise has a good Abima contract, and Rise gets a lot more viewers than Bomb. Bomb barely gets any viewers at all. It's like a very, very minor league promotion.
I can't even find like half the fights on YouTube. That's
yeah, they don't exist. It's just, I mean, the fighters don't even get paid there that much. It's just people that like fighting, they're going there. But I think Bomb has recently made a deal with ONE FC, because their next event tomorrow literally is like ONE FC presents Bomb, and all of the, I think Saya Ito's fight is going under with open glove. They're wearing ONE FC MMA gloves for the kickboxing fights. So ONE FC
Super Series fight.
Yeah, ONE FC has infested yet another promotion.
Boo.
One of my friends was for shits and giggles. He said for shits and giggles, do Nadaka versus Ren Hiramoto in a kickboxing match. Who the fuck cares?
What is it? Ren Hiramoto is actually going to Duke Rufus to train MMA now.
Oh yes. So
yeah, we've seen the clips and pictures of him training up in Milwaukee with Rufus Sport.
So good on him. He's expanding his horizons from wherever he was training. He was training like 5 different places in like.
Yeah, I liked how Shu tried to be coy about that. Shu was like, "Oh, one of my clients is going to Duke Rufus." I'm like, "Oh, which one of your clients has a kickboxing background who's transitioning to MMA?" Oh, one guy. Okay.
He's going to the guy who has a kickboxing background and is now training MMA players. So, no, of course it was Naoki Inoue, of course, because he's
sending Naoki Inoue to Duke Rufus.
Okay, and so now we move on to, I guess, part 2. Oh, actually, just briefly, Chikai, bring him back for a show quickly. Panel. No. Charles, Jack, Chikai.
He was a sacrificial lamb. That was the only reason they brought him out. He was like the goat in Jurassic Park.
Jack, what do you think about the goat from Jurassic Park, aka?
No, don't bring him back. I mean, who do you even give him other than Nadaka again? Which would be like negligence.
So cruel. They just make him fight him like every week for the next.
Exactly.
And over again.
Best of 7.
Maybe bring in the goat. Maybe actually bring in the leg of the goats that the T-Rex threw at the car to fight him. But that was just every week, just have him fight Nadaka. Well, that's what happens when you don't. That's what happens when you don't have any Muay Thai fighters or any. That's what happens when a pandemic. You don't have anybody to face off. And as I try to find the picture, next we gotta talk about. I mean, there's very little to talk about other than an errant headbutt in Koji and Genji Umeno. What an unfortunate thing that this whole tournament. This tournament was like.
you brought this on this tournament. You
It's
brought
not
this
my
on this
fault.
specifically. You were the one that was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if the finals was not the people it was supposed to be? Wouldn't it be hilarious if Koji didn't make it to the finals?
Well, here's the thing. He did make the finals, albeit
That he had
however,
to. Like the crowd would have rioted and just got up and left if he didn't make the
they would have
finals.
thrown their little thunder sticks into the ring, a la Vader and Noki with the pillows at Sumo Hall.
Exactly.
So Charles, did you happen to know? Did they say that that Umeno? Did the doctor say that Umeno couldn't compete, or did Umeno say he couldn't compete?
Well, I don't know what he said. They didn't have a mic on him, but I mean, it looked like he was in a lot of pain. And
he
it looked
looked
like
loopy. He looked like he might have been even concussed.
Yeah, it looked like he was having eye problems, which I know broken eyes can also mess up. I mean, not broken noses can also mess up your vision. And it looked like he was having eye issues. And it was the doctor. I mean, the doctor seemed very clearly like he was going to stop it, which now is just as good enough time to bring it up as any. After this fight in the finals, Taiju said, because Taiju also got headbutted by Koji, and in his post-fight speech, he said, "You got to stop headbutting people. Please stop headbutting people." And it turns out Koji's actually been accused of headbutting lots of people throughout his career, and it seems to be like a common trend in his fights.
So he's basically being hypocritical, right?
So I'm trying to remember. I saw his fight with Takaru. I don't. Did it happen during tension? I'm trying to remember if it happened during tension fight. I think it happened during the Gomi fight, like once or twice.
Yeah, it did. I don't know if it's intentional. Like, it's one of those things that happens so often that you start to wonder. But it looks like he just puts his. I mean, especially against Taiju, but these other guys who are taller than him, he puts his head down and kind of rushes in for body shots.
It's very odd because he shouldn't be, especially for a guy like Taiju who's like, I know he's not a foot taller than him, but he's significantly taller than him. Like, he should be hitting his chest somehow, and yet somehow he's like hitting his head. I don't know how.
Yeah, but at a certain point, you start getting to like John Jones eye pokes levels of fouls happening. You're just like, what is happening? Why do you headbutt all of your opponents?
I mean, yeah, this is like, I was thinking the worst case final, but not like the worst case to get to the final. And literally, this is like listen, this was like the worst way this fight could have happened, could have gone, like minus like both fighters like breaking their legs, like entering the ring, like literally.
I feel like you almost have to reschedule this fight.
I feel like they're going to do this. So, we talked about Yuma, Yamaha. I feel like they're going to try to do this because they feel like this is how they can get Koji a win.
Because his opponent was so pissed. You could see how angry he was when the fight got canceled. Like,
he was probably Omeno was probably like, yeah, I'm going to win this tournament. He was really confident, and he's on Rise and probably making his biggest payday. I'm guessing. So, and yeah, this happens, and because your opponent headbutted you. Like, I'm intentionally or unintentionally, however it is. This was and it just this just like set in motion so many other weird things that just happened during this show, and this was maybe like the biggest one of them.
But we all knew that Koji was going to the finals. It was like no contest. And it's like, okay, somehow they're gonna make Koji go to the finals.
Well, I remember, didn't Shu say on something? I think Shu Hirata said something on Twitter that like normally, like if the winner can't compete, they would put the loser in for like a tournament like this. So like, if obviously Omeno was not healthy to compete, what would happen?
The thing that was happening normally, what you do is in a no contest. That was weird too. Is no contest. There's no winner, but when in a no contest, when one of them can't compete anymore medically, it's pretty easy to decide which one's the one that gets to go forward in the tournament, especially when you don't have a reserve bout.
Jack, I know you cover lots of MMA. What did you think of MMA, kickboxing, all that stuff? What do you think of how this fight just like? Was it just like, really? Is this how we're starting off our tournaments?
Well, this might come off as somewhat sadistic, but what interests me about covering MMA and combat sports a lot is that things go wrong a lot. Often the main event, which sells thousands of tickets and brings in millions of dollars of revenue, can be a complete mistake, a complete mess up. And a lot of the fights where things are supposed to happen, the worst case scenario happens. And I mean, we got that in this, unfortunately. It's just part of the fight game that anything can really happen in any single fight. And I think that this is an example of how one night tournaments are taking a risk. And
Yes.
Fans should probably count their blessings that this type of stuff doesn't happen as much in one night tournaments. K1 does one night tournaments somewhat frequently. Don't quote me on that. Maybe I'm wrong. There's been quite a bit of one night tournaments in the past, and a lot of them haven't been disastrous. But I mean, you do run that risk, and unfortunately, that's what we got with this show.
So we have in the comments here from Pom
Yeah, we
Tem.
have in the comments from Pom Tim Tamoya that Koji is the headbutt king. I mean, I'm not surprised about that because, you say that you wanted to bring the fans to liking you. Obviously, you wouldn't have bought out all those damn tickets if people didn't like you. But to have a performance like that and say that you're going into the final fight, it's just disappointing, don't you think?
Well,
I think so.
Sorry, go ahead, they need to run this fight back. They need to run this fight back in Lethway rules, obviously.
Yes.
That would be the next logical step.
First Rizin Lethway fight. I'm totally for it. They've done
almost everything. The current Rising Lethway fighter has been arrested for theft, so they do have a void they need to fill.
Well, yes, exactly.
You know what? That would work. That fight would work under Lethway rules, but I did not know that Yuma Kat Hamamoto is the guy's name.
Oh, no. The other one. We're talking about Dawa Koku, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, right. I didn't know that he was, under arrest. What was he under suspicion of?
They found like something of his at the scene of like an attempted break-in at a car or something.
I think he broke into a car. Supposedly he broke into a car with like a bunch of witnesses, just like, it wasn't even like normally. So,
I haven't looked too much into it. What I've seen is like, I don't know if he tried. I think he tried to break into a car. Maybe he did break into a car, but they like found like his wallet like at the scene. It was like,
it's like that guy.
It was like Sherlock Holmes level detecting. Like, oh, whose wallet is this right by the scene?
It was like that guy like who like stole like a whole bunch of money from like someone, and like he posted on Instagram, and like there was like something, and like he posted like, oh hey, I just broke into so and so's house, on his like Facebook or something, and like what do you think happens when it was something like, it was like that level.
I mean, basically, it's what happens when you try to be a hoodlum, but you're just too well known in the hood, so to speak.
I think also the case with Koji is that he did a lot of shit talking, as Koji does, and then for the fight to go like that, it's kind of like.
Well, I was kind of thinking like, sure, it's a shitty situation, but like Koji's got to be happy it ended up that way. It's like I get to go to the finals having fought for 20 seconds.
Oh, he didn't seem upset
no
at all.
damage.
I think Omeno was much more upset than Koji was. Koji was like
100%.
Koji, I think, kind of knew that like this. Well, he's the one who suggested this tournament, and supposedly it was all him. So like it was clearly like he was made to go to the finals. Who knows? Maybe if he would have even lost, maybe he would have gone to the finals somehow. Who knows? But yeah, he was going to the finals no matter what. It was just interesting to think about like the weird things that could happen. If they didn't put Koji in the finals, which I'm 9%.
Well, I like to think that maybe this fight finished and he was like, okay, I get to go to the finals without much fatigue, and I'm gonna face a really tired Taiju, and then the next fight happened and he was like, well, shit.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Taiju Shiratori just totally murdered Ryo Takahashi in the first round, and like, we talked about actually, Dub has a very interesting comment. He said, from the beginning, nobody cares about this tournament, only Koji fans. No surprise there. Listen, Koji's fans or I guess I've come to learn that they're like the equivalent of K-pop fans. Oh, like BTS.
Very militant. They're very organized.
Hey, watch what you say about K-pop fans. They might come and attack us next.
That's Koji fans I was talking about. Koji fans.
I don't care about I don't care about the Koji fans. Listen, I'm just saying that they have that like that level of commitment where I think that like probably like I think there was something where like Tension was Tension was getting like a lot of hate stuff from the Koji fans when their fight was happening. I think there was something like along those lines.
That makes sense, but I mean, I have this theory I've been developing. I think Tenshin's popularity is actually dwindling currently, just based off of like the reception to his last fight. But that's another topic.
I think so too. I think I don't think he's riding the post Mayweather high as it was.
I think Mikuru and Kai have blown past him.
Oh yeah,
and he's kind of stuck behind them. Like the fact, like Naoki Inoue is getting like similar views on the YouTube of Rising channel, just like.
Also Ren. I think Ren is like also light years ahead of Tenshin.
I think it's an interesting thing to sort of figure out like what audiences are more popular with who, because Tenshin's still valued as like a TV network person, and they I guess the rumor was that Fuji TV probably wanted Tenshin. That's why he appeared at Rizin 28. But when you think about it, you know, he's not pulling the numbers on YouTube that these Mikuru Kai type names are. So it sort of makes you think, you know, is Tenshin maybe more popular in the older demographics that aren't watching YouTube?
Tenshin definitely has much more brand awareness. People know who Tenshin is. They've heard his name, probably because of the Mayweather fight. But I mean, he has name awareness, which is a big factor. But I feel like people didn't give a shit about his last fight, the weird exhibition thing. And the number one takeaway I'm seeing from people, my friends, is that just like, how is he going to fight actual boxers when he struggled against 3 non-boxers? Like, ugh.
I also feel like he's done a lot of things that made him unlikable since the Mayweather fight, and that does have an effect. And it's not like unlikable where like you hate him so much, kind of like unlikable like I just don't care about you anymore. Like Ren Hiramoto can get haters on him, and because they want to see this guy fucking fail. Tenshin's not at that level where like, yeah, I want to see him fail. It's kind of like, I just don't care about you anymore. Like, you know, the whole thing of Kana Asakura, that whole thing.
We're team Kana in this house. My wife likes Kana Asakura, so.
That whole thing, him saying that I'm not interested in Takeru anymore. And just kind of, I think is generally.
Takeru doesn't bother me that much, just because that's just K1's never going to allow that to happen.
I think that Tenshin. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just think he thinks he's going to be very successful in boxing, and I mean, Naoya Inoue is a huge deal over here in boxing. And I mean, Tenshin's going to go from being the biggest fish in a small pond to being just a fish in a big pond. And he's going to have to do something to make himself stick out in boxing. I don't know how he's going to do it.
Yeah, well, and also I don't know, his weight division it's not the same. Like 125, 135, maybe 140, who knows, whatever he chose is like, it's just not the same. The pool is not as deep and it's not as pay attention to.
Yeah, but that's in kickboxing though.
No, same thing with boxing.
In boxing at his weight class, there's a lot of big names at that 125 to 130 pound weight division, like Gervonta Davis, for instance.
But also he has a Mayweather connection. You gotta you have to exceptionally like stick out to be the guy who's like of that division. And you know, I don't know how Tenshin plans to do it. Good luck to him if he can, but it's you know, it's not the road is not as easy I think he might think it is to become a big American boxer or a big.
I think the thing that he would need to do is sign with a big name. Well, not really a big name promoter, because nobody. I mean, yeah, I get that he got the Mayweather fight on his resume, but nobody's gonna want a guy who didn't last 3 minutes with Mayweather. So, you know, I think he's gonna want to sign with Al Heyman and PBC. Or, you know, he gonna say the enemy of my enemy is my friend and go join Team Mayweather with Mayweather Promotion, the money team. I just hope that they won't change his image up, you know, change that legendary Ikichi Yazawa entrance music, or tell him to come out to something else.
I think he's already like made connections with the same promotion that is Naoya Inoue. So I think he's trying to go that route.
I mean, basically, who's Inoue's promoter aside from Top Rank taking promotions?
No, it's like not like it's the promoter, but like whatever agent he uses or whatever the Japanese boxing group is. It's like some old Japanese boxing champion. I forget the name.
Taking promotions, I think it is, right?
Yeah, but now he's just. I mean, now he's only 120 pounds, I think, but he's so dominant that I feel like for Tenshin to get his foot in the door of boxing, he's going to have to maybe more impressive than him, which I think is going to be hard to do.
That's the thing that Inoue, Inoue is so he knocks out everybody or makes them look like they've just just survived like World War III when they come out of their fights. So it's like his dominance is unparalleled in that division. So you can at least say this guy is knocking out everybody before the third round or whatever it is, or he's dominating everybody. It's like that Triple G or, Canelo level of just like, they're so good that you can't miss this guy. If Tenshin is just the way that he boxed at 28 is the way he's going to box, in his career, that's not going to set him apart at all. He's going to be no different than, your local, guy who's, 20, 10-8 as a boxer.
Basically, your typical Ham and Egger.
Basically, yeah. Sorry, Charles. Was that Charles? Or
I think it's just kind of a waste too. I mean, I'd like to see him stay in kickboxing just because I feel like the range, especially between kickboxing and boxing, is so different that I would just like to see him really dominate the kickboxing world. But he wants to make money, and the money is in boxing, so we'll see.
Unfortunately,
I think that Tenshin has sort of a squeaky clean image in the public. I mean, there's tabloid stuff, but he brings forward a squeaky clean image, and I think that if he wants to reach the levels of popularity of Mikuru Kai, he should do the more edgy stuff that they do, and have the unlikability that the positive type of unlikability that they have. I mean, when you look at their videos, they'll have millions of views, and they'll have a fair amount of dislikes on some of them. But I mean, people are talking about those guys.
Well, Mikuru does. Kai is the likable one. Mikuru is kind of like the annoying. Well, is the annoying older brother in that case. So if you wanted to be like more like Mikuru, then definitely do that. Definitely.
I could be completely misreading the situation because there's obviously a language cultural barrier. I'm not watching these videos and understanding them, but I do see some, and I see the dislikes, and I go, oh, that's interesting. Well, these guys are definitely doing something that rattles some people.
Yeah. I think Mikuru gets a lot of haters because his videos are more edgy, like you said. I think Kai's are definitely more like, I'm going to dress like a nerd and go to Akihabara with Panchan Rena.
Also, Kai smiles a lot more. Mikuru just has this like stoic face. He has this like poker face all the time, and it's just like Mikuru just looks like he's always miserable. He looks like he's miserable doing anything. He looks like he's not having fun doing anything. Kai, he's smiling, dressing up as a geek, and all that stuff. He seems to be having fun of it, or at least pretending to have fun. Mikuru just looks miserable, like in any sort of setting, whether he's doing an interview, whether he's doing YouTube. He just does not seem happy at all.
The premise of those nerd videos are so weird. It's like, I'm gonna dress as a nerd, and then people are going to bully me for that, and then I'm gonna reveal I'm a pro fighter, and then we're gonna not fight. We're just gonna make amends at that point.
Did you see the weird ones where they were like going on catfish dates?
Oh, I saw like one or two of those videos. They're
yeah.
Oh, they're so That's what
I saw him dressed as a nerd and go to a maid cafe, but that's basically all I saw on his channel.
What you trying to say about catfish days? I mean, are you basically saying it's like girls with anime avatars and they end up being disgusting sumo guys?
I know you're going to call me out on this. I said catfish prematurely. I don't know what to call it. It's like similar to catfishing, where they would like get online dates with these girls, and the girls would be real, but the girls would work for a bar, and the girl would be like, meet me at this bar, and they'd go there, and the girl would rack up like this insane bill. Like, I think it's like over $1,000, and be like, oh, you should pay the bill. And like, yeah, I think it was Kai, maybe. I think Kai was like not going to pay the bill. So they had like a tough guy come over, and Kai was like, I'm a tough guy too. Let's see what happens.
Well, they should. I'm calling up MTV right now and telling them they're not paying the licensing fees for catfish over in Japan. They should get their legal team on that right now.
Yeah. But let's go back to Taiju and Takahashi brother number 2. An absolute murder.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it right now.
Yep.
Regardless of what type of popularity the Takahashi brothers are getting, I don't think they're gonna be Rizin worthy unless they're given easy bouts.
Oh, of course not.
Just safe to say. As far as Taiju, as far as Genji Umeno, as far as even Koji, who we'll talk about later in the Shirotori fight, they're all Rizin worthy, especially Umeno with the Rise connection.
And especially Koji, because I think they want him to get a win, and they didn't lure him away from K1 to have a record in the organization.
I mean, exactly. But we'll talk more about Koji later, won't we?
Of course. Charles, what do you think of Taiju Shiratori? Basically, basically the way I put it was like Takahashi had a bomb on him. The only way it could be defused was Taiju basically like just putting him out of his misery. And yeah,
like we said in our preview, like Taiju is such a interesting fighter because he's so tall that and he's kind of this weird guy where it's like he's always dominating until he's not.
Yeah, it's weird because when he's out of his element, he's almost walking with like 2 left feet. He seems to lose all coordination. He seems to just not be in his element. But yeah, he fought like I've never seen him fight like this before. He's usually not like some guy who blitzes somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I put that down to a tournament. I mean, a lot of these tournament fights, you saw it in the Deep Jewels tournament, you saw it in Rising tournaments, you saw it in Dream. These guys are like, I have to fight again tonight if I win this. I'm just going to blitz this guy and try to get him out of there immediately and go back, get my hands on tape, relax a little bit, and then go do the final without taking any damage.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be the strategy going into a lot of these tournaments because why would you want to be the more tired guy who's been beat up going into it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jack, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I would agree that that's clearly what the game plan was for Taiju in this fight, just to get it done with quickly so you can essentially still have a 1-fight night if you get your first fight done so quickly. You mentioned it's funny that Taiju, he can be winning a fight until he's not, or vice versa. We're going to talk about it obviously later in the fight or in the podcast, but in the main event, it almost felt like the first round he scored this knockdown and had seemingly he was closing in on a finish, and then the next round it was like the first round of another fight, and all of a sudden they were back and forth in exchanges.
Mm-hmm. Taiju is awesome to watch. This actually just redeemed himself for losing in the Rise tournament that happened. So it's
clearly a fighter that Rise wants to do well, and he's someone they're playing around with the idea of him being the new face of the organization. He's just kind of failed every time they try to push him over, he's just stumbled.
I also just don't think he has a personality to be like that. He seems very awkward. He just doesn't. Not like Naoki in a way awkward, where you kind of like. He just seems boring. He just seems. That's the impression I get when
they can fix that. I mean, Rise has been around for a long time. They're around before Tenshin. They'll be around after Tenshin. They'll find a way. If they can get a guy that wins fights, they can find a way to promote him. It's just,
I think that promotion's been around since Tenshin was only 4 years old. If I'm correct.
Well, I remember going back when Erika Kamimoto was the face of the organization like 12 years ago. So they've been around for a while.
Do you see Rizin trying to use Taiju to fill that Tenshin void when Tenshin goes to
we gotta do is Rise has a deal with Abima, and Abima is very popular. And Rise gets a lot of young viewership through it. If you go to a Rise show, there's a ton of young viewers. So you need Rise to build somebody up before you bring them over. Taiju has that possibility. They just need to promote him and build him up. And I think they were trying to do that with that tournament where he got cut and he didn't make it to the finals because he got like headbutted or something.
Yes.
And, but I mean, Rise is clearly trying to push someone forward. It just hasn't worked yet.
Christian, what do you think of Taiju? What do you think his future entails?
Well, we'll talk more about this later, won't we? But I think that after this fight, this win over somebody as big of a name in J-Kick as a Takahashi brother, specifically Rio, his future's looking kind of bright.
Maybe,
and I think it's only going to get brighter from here.
Maybe they should have him go through all the Takahashi brothers.
What? Have them not have them?
That's how they introduce it. They do Taiju versus Takahashi brothers at New Year's Eve.
Make it like when Betch Koera fought the 4 horsewomen, just have him fight each one of them and do the finger thing after each fight.
Oh my goodness. Basically, what you're trying to say is have him beat all 3 Takahashi brothers, and the one who got beat up the most is the one that shaves their head bald in the middle of the ring. Huh?
Exactly, yes. For losing.
Oh, Lord.
Did I just curse? Is he going to get like knocked out onto a Straight Outta Compton poster now? Did I just not curse him?
Well, that's the one thing I worry about. Is that what's going to be Taiju's next fight? Like that's what he's not on that Rise card that's coming up, so I'm assuming that they're going to put him on something later, maybe the second part of that tournament. I'm guessing to that's what I'm feeling is that since he just fought now, I don't think they're going to put him on a show.
Who's the other? I mean, they do some pretty quick turnarounds. Who's the? Is it? I always get the name. I always get confused. Is it Hasegawa? Who's the other fighter that they've been pushing a lot?
Oh, is it Yamaguchi? Hiroto Yamaguchi?
Give me a second. I'll find it. It's Haraguchi. Yeah, it's Kento Haraguchi. Yeah.
Kento Haraguchi. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I know they fought recently, and Haraguchi seems like another one that they're potentially angling to have to be the new face of the organization. Mm-hmm. But I say just have him fight a couple guys, build them up, and then do a Haraguchi rematch, maybe.
Against Kento.
Yeah, build it up and have Taiju and him just fight again.
Gotcha. I wouldn't be surprised they did that. And we might as well just talk about the main events. It's no surprise. Taiju, Koji, 3 decision wins. I think I've lost count the amount of headbutts. I watched it on YouTube. And there was also 2.
So wait a minute, we're gonna talk about the main event now.
Might as well since we're already there. So 2 low kicks to the balls. So I guess
like Demetrius Johnson versus Pop Rocks. Was it Dodson? You get one of each. You get 1 low blow, 1 eye poke, and 1 illegal down kick to an opponent.
Or in the case of Koji, you get unlimited headbutts.
Yeah.
I guess Taiju won that really cool belt. That was a really cool belt. Some people say it was like a Power Rangers type belt.
Yeah, I was making fun of it. I thought it was a cool looking belt.
Yeah, I like how every belt's different that they that they produce for whatever. They're not all the same design.
You say that correctly, Andrew, because you had the Double Dragon belt for the 2nd heavyweight Grand Prix. You had the big ass belt for the King Mo belt. For the King Mo victory when he first won the Rizin tournament back in 2015. You had a bunch of gold and black and gold and red straps for the men's and women's tournaments, and now you got this Kamen Rider belt for the
Kamen Rider. Really? Kamen Rider? I don't know. I think it seems. Well, I guess Kamen Rider.
Hey, what the Japanese say? Okay, it looks like Kamen Rider, not a damn Power Ranger.
Or how about I really make this Japanese Super Sentai? I'll say it's a Super Sentai belt.
Hey. Easy for you to say. For you to
as
say.
My Twitter shows, my favorite belt in JMA history has always been the Super Hulk belt that Minowa made out of cardboard.
Yeah.
And he spelled Hulk wrong. He spelled it HLUK. I still think it's the greatest belt of all time.
Exactly. I'm surprised nobody put that up. Well, I'm surprised a lot of belt manufacturers didn't catch up on that. But still, when it came down to Koji's performance in this final fight, it's like something that was once said about Hikaru Utada before. Koji trying to move units like Michael in the 80s. But in this case, Koji would be not moving units, but moving asses and seats. But when it came down to this fight, he was completely disappointing, wasn't he?
I want more 80s references to basketball in this MMA podcast.
I don't mean that wasn't a Michael Jordan reference. That was a Michael Jackson reference.
I thought you said Michael Jordan.
Either way.
Hey, they both move units.
Yeah,
exactly. But the point is, Koji was disappointing in the finals of this tournament, and he just wasn't like himself. Like how he was in that Genju Mano fight before the headbutt of Palooza happened.
Well, I don't. Jack can follow up and let me know what he thinks about the fight, but I feel like Taiju knocked down the first round, and Taiju's looking really good in the first round. And I feel like Koji had this moment when he was sitting on the bench where he's like, "Fuck, I'm gonna have to get hit a lot." He just decided, I'm gonna have to get hit a lot to try to win this fight, and so he just tried to do his best. What was it? Peter Arts versus Semi Schilt impression, and charge through the punches to try to get to the body and chop down Taiju. But it always felt like Koji was getting in and occasionally getting the good body punches in, but it felt like he was always taking worse to get in. And he was, if I remember correctly, I haven't rewatched it, I feel like he's getting knocked off balance quite a bit. And he's kind of desperately just being like, I got to do something to try to win this fight. And so I give him a lot of credit for trying to make an exciting fight and just trying to win. But is that a cat? It's hilarious. But I definitely feel like there's a moment in the first round where he changed.
Actually, CJ, I'm gonna go ahead and take a little break, but I'll be back in just a few seconds. Go ahead and continue without me.
Yeah, but I just felt like there was like this weird shift after the first round where he was like, "Fuck, I just got to run at this guy. I can't fight this guy at distance. He's gonna pick me to pieces. I gotta try to get it in close," and it just didn't work out for him.
Was that his come to Jesus moments?
I feel like it was. I feel like he was just like, "Am I gonna lose like a bitch?" Like, it's just in his mind. Am I gonna lose just getting jabbed and struck from the outside, or am I at least gonna try to take this guy out? Maybe lose doing it, but at least my fans will be happy knowing that I tried to finish this fight.
Well, I think that, I don't have the same opinion similar to Christian. It was a disappointing performance from Koji because I think that, he got hurt early and obviously that's not what you want, but he made it a fight that was interesting to the end because it was clear that he was throwing with intent, and he, while Taiju was still ahead and while Taiju was en route to a decision win, Taiju, he was making him work out there, and that's all you can really hope, when someone's behind on scorecards like that. I obviously, in my opinion, this was a better outcome than, Koji getting knocked down early and then Taiju cruising to a scorecard win, which I don't really think that's what happened.
Yeah, Jack, it was like kind of weird. It was like, you're like, wow, like you're watching, like Koji's trying really hard. But you're always like knowing like he's losing these rounds, but he's trying really hard. It's like this weird like participation trophy almost, where the thought process through it was like he's trying to make this as exciting a fight as possible. I think
he got the moral victory. Is that what you're saying? He got.
I saw some people say on Twitter about. There's so many memes I saw about him having the moral victory.
I hate that. I hate when because you're basically, that's worse when you say, "Oh, it just means you didn't do shit." And I always notice that they always say have fighters who don't do anything, who are so outclassed, and just by like lasting 3 rounds, like I even saw people with CM Punk, in his. If I say, he got the moral, no, he fucking did. No, can we just be on? If we just stop using that as like a
I don't care about moral victories in fights.
Yeah.
I will say
your Wikipedia doesn't give 26-0 in moral victories.
Well, I will say that the moral victories do exist, like Kana Asakura facing Ayaka Hamasaki for the second time. That was, I mean, would you guys agree that was a moral victory in the sense that when that booking came out, the consensus opinion was, this is sort of weird. And then it actually became a pretty close fight in the end.
Yeah.
No, she still lost. I mean, it shows
she definitely lost, but
it's just that she did better and showed that she didn't get she came prepared, not get finished as quick as she did.
I cracked that up to more. Ayaka Hamasaki's been obsessed recently with trying to knock somebody out. And if she didn't burn herself out trying to knock out Kana in the first round, she probably could have just grappled her. But if you watch her past couple of fights, she's obsessed with trying to knock someone out. This
could just be, you guys could completely disagree with this, but to me, it was a moral victory in the sense that it was a loss, but Kana's stock did go up after the fight. it wasn't a loss in the sense that, okay, well, now they need to give her, you know, something that she can just rebound off of easily.
See, I guess I just don't understand what people say when they say a moral victory, because that's not what I would. See, my thing was, I thought it was kind of a win-win. I mean, I agree with you in the fact that Kana came out looking really good, and it was great for Rising, because the two good scenarios for Rising in that event was Kana Asakura wins because Ayaka Hamasaki's 39 years old, or Kana performs really well and looks like she can take the reins after Ayaka retires, which is what happened. And so in that regard, I do agree that like it raised her stock and she showed a lot of improvement. But I mean, after the fight, she said herself, like, I don't give a shit what people say, that like I did really well. I lost the fight. I wanted to win the fight. But I mean, in that fight, I can understand calling it a moral victory. I can't understand calling this Koji fight a moral victory. I see it as more of a financial victory on his part, where he was like, 5,000 people paid tickets to see me fight. If I don't put on, in my first fight, they saw me headbutt a guy and nothing happened. I got to try to do something to make these guys happy that they spent, what, $20,000 to watch me fight. I need to get them back for another fight.
Do you think it hurts Koji's drawing power at all after this show, Charles?
Oh, no. I think Japan in general is a lot less caring of records than the US and the Western countries. I think they care more about the quality of the fights. And because he tried so hard, I feel like they'll be more forgiving.
I think that it was sort of touched on earlier in the podcast, but what I think we could run into here in this situation is that even though it was, you know, a performance where he made it a closer fight than it seemed like it was going to be after he got knocked down, we are in this situation where it's like, okay, well, we need to see a solid performance from him, because since he's went to Rizin, he fought Tenshin Nasukawa, and going 3 rounds against Tenshin is obviously an accomplishment. We're not going to get into the moral victory discussion again. That's not going to be a thing here. But I mean, after a year in the organization, we need to see something. Or unless you and if you don't see something, that's when you start sort of, you know, waving a red flag of, okay, what's going on here?
I mean, it's hard to be a fighter that's known for talking shit when you've just been losing. They're just going to start throwing that back in your face.
But I hope he doesn't stop it, because he is easily, if there was a pound for pound rankings of best shit talkers in Rizin, it would be him and Ren Hiromoto, which is, I mean, when you think about it, sort of ironic, since both those guys have only lost in Rizin.
Don't forget Kyoei Hagiwara, who literally says that he'll beat the shit out of his opponents and kill them in the ring. He has said that. So I don't know if
terrifying.
Yeah, that's like psycho level, and he's got tattoos. So that being Japanese and having tattoos makes you an extra level of psycho. But so yeah, obviously we know. I think Taiju has a future in Rizin, obviously in Rise. But
just look at his shorts in that picture behind you. The dude's covered in sponsors.
Oh yeah,
he wears that jacket. The guy's a big deal. He'll have a future wherever he decides to fight. But I think Rising is obviously his future.
We're still talking about the damn Taiju fight.
You tried to get away from it, but we just kept talking about it until you came back.
So, but here's a big question. Here's the question I have. Obviously, we know Taiju has a future, but Koji, what do you do with Koji? I know we suggested, or it was just, you know, Yuma Yamahata as an easy fight, presumably, but I don't know. Would Koji take such a low level fight? It would almost be an insult.
Rising's got to sit him down and be like, hey, Koji, you're a real badass, but we really need you to win one. So
what would you do, Charles? You know, if you were, what do you think would be? Do you think that would fight, or do you think he's just a big fight guy? He's coming in for those big fights.
Well, eventually you got to win one of the big fights, so they need to get him a win and need to rehab him a little bit. I mean, they've kind of milked him dry. They gave him the Takeru fight. And then they had the weird Gomi fight, whatever. That's a pass. Gomi outweighed him by a ton. And it's a boxing match, so that doesn't really matter. But this tournament was kind of meant to showcase him and kind of turn into the Taiju show. And so he needs to get a win. And I think the Umeya is a perfect fight. Get him against a shoot boxer. The only downside to that is if you lose that fight, then you kind of, what happens then?
That's the thing. I think, you know, Umeya's he's not a pushover. He's not a
pushover, and he's shown very clearly that he can knock people out, which is just the great eraser.
Also, if they rematch, they have to wear helmets. unfortunately. I do not trust Koji again.
What, like it's amateur boxing or something?
No, because he headbutts. That's the one thing. That's the other thing. Now I'm gonna watch every Koji fight going forward. I'm gonna count the amount of times he headbutts.
Speaking of fouls, did you guys watch the Rising Confession video that came out today?
Yes, the one with Kleber and Mikuru, right?
Yeah, the one where they zoomed in on the Vugar fight and they like literally zoomed in on each foul.
Oh yes.
Like they showed him
I'ma
sticking his
need to
finger in the
see-
cut.
Wow. I'm gonna need to see both of those Rising Confession videos because they just released 2 of them within like a 48-hour time span. Right?
We give credit to the guy who originally did like all that work. F Google. I don't know if he was in the chat before, but
Yeah.
give credit
He was
to him.
great.
He was the one who basically time stamped every. He went through that and JFK'd that back into the left.
His comment has like thousands of likes. It's hilarious.
Oh yeah, so yeah, listen.
Some comments probably.
Yeah, give F Google the credit because he's
Also the video, just like the Rising Confession video, just like confirms that Musayev and Vugar's manager is kind of the vocal asshole that's probably in control of their Twitter.
Oh, probably. It's always manager. Listen, we know Ali.
Why would the manager approach Saito after the fight and be like, "Do you think you won that fight?" Like, the dude's going to a doctor, like, talk to a Rising official.
I don't even think Saito even understood him.
He did. He answered. He said, "Under Rising rules, I won."
Well, first of all, this guy's yelling at him and whatever. First of all, he's probably not Blueby. Japanese is his first language, so he's thinking, "What is this guy saying?" And I think there was like some cuts, so I'm pretty sure that they had Shingo or somebody like there to translate for him.
Yeah, you can see Shingo doing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard for him to actually understand that because you had Vugar and Tawfiq's manager who speaks Azerbaijani. Then you would have to have a Russian translator just to get that to them. Then you would have to have the Japanese translator just to get that back.
No, his manager speaks
English. It looked like the translator for them was doing Azerbaijani to English. Looked like what was happening in the video, at least. And then Shingo is doing English to Japanese.
So yeah, it's you're having 1,000 people speak different languages.
But I don't even think the manager was translating. I think the manager was just like yelling himself.
That's the thing. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Listen, it doesn't, and I probably also Saito probably knew what he was yelling about, so he kind of had an idea.
Because Vugar wasn't even there. Vugar was like in a different room as the whole thing was going on.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, no, they separate the red and blue corner, so probably he's on the other side of the locker room or whatever.
Well, it all just seemed very strange. It seemed like a stupid thing to do for a manager if you're trying to generate more fights.
Listen, managers are going to manage, so it does not surprise me. And like you said, he controls their Twitters. It seemed like their social media, so it seems to be all on him. Jack, Koji, what would you do with him?
I think we had I guess you guys had the right idea earlier in the broadcast, saying that he should rematch the guy he fought in the first round. Whether the outcome of the finals doesn't really, whether they even put him in the finals or not doesn't really matter. I think they still have a justified case for running this fight back. And I mean, when you think about it, that's not a bad matchup for him if you want to give him a real litmus test and see, okay, can we get a good performance out of you here? Can you show us something?
Well, here's the thing. If they want to give him an easy opponent, I think they give him Takahashi. I think that's the easier opponent. If you 100% want, if he loses against Takahashi, then that's when Sakakiwara just rips up his contract and says, "Best of luck, Koji. Go make YouTube."
Which Takahashi though?
Rio, the one that fought Shiratori.
Oh, okay.
Because if he can't beat someone like Ryo Takahashi, then I don't know what else to say. It's like, sorry. Go to Rise and build up some wins or something. I don't know. That would be like the biggest insult though. Telling like him going to Rise probably. I mean, could you ever see that, Charles? Him going to Rise? I don't think so.
I don't think so. They wouldn't want to pay him for it because they don't want to do a lot of shows in Osaka. But it's interesting though because it's not like the deterioration's his chin or anything. He seems to still be able to take punches quite well. Kind of wondering what's going on.
Maybe you just don't give a shit. Maybe he's at that age where he just got tired of K1, came to Rizin because I don't know. because I think wasn't his last major fight the Takaru fight for K1? I think that.
I believe so. Yes. It seemed almost like he didn't have a good strategy. It was like once it became clear that Taiju had a height advantage, which should have been obvious in the very beginning, he was just like, "Well, I'm just going to run at him."
I'm just gonna run. I'm gonna run head first into him and somehow headbutt this guy who's 5 inches taller than me. I don't know. I seriously, I'm gonna have to rewatch that again and just see like how he headbutts it, how he headbutt because it happened twice. I remember it happened twice. Remember at the end. Remember when I think the second time that happened, Taiju like hit like was like headbutts. Like he motioned like because I thought he punched him in the back of the head when Taiju did that. But no,
I thought that's why the ref stopped it too. I thought he was criticizing him for punching him behind the head when I was watching it live. And then I noticed that it was actually a headbutt for the whole thing.
I don't know. Maybe Koji versus Shibatar. Who the fuck knows?
Now that's digging too deep.
Well, sorry,
Oh
Charles.
my
You want
God.
to say something?
I'm like, if Shibatar knocks out Koji.
Shibatar listen, he knocked down Hiroya. He got a knockdown.
Knocked his teeth out.
Knocked his teeth. Listen, so that's on record that he has a knockdown on a former K1 fighter.
Yeah, but Koji versus Shibatar, that's kind of digging too deep, don't you think?
I don't listen. All these organizations are making these weird like non-traditional super fights. We got even Quintet doing like an X versus like comedy actor guy. Road FC is doing like there's a former Yakuza guy taking on an actor in their main event.
Well, that
Heard
fight
Road FC didn't Road FC try to steal your boy from Smoker Jim?
I don't know if it was confirmed that it was Road FC. It might have been. He tried.
Well, I've heard from people that it was Road FC.
Really interesting. I didn't know that.
Heard Road FC is looking for some talent for their upcoming shows. Now they're back up and going.
Because when he said that he got contacted by an overseas organization, I was like, what overseas organization would contact a fighter who's like 3-2? Would it be UFC? Bellator, maybe.
No.
I don't. But then I was like, it couldn't really be. Road FC makes sense. It really makes
Bellator would never approach the fighters without going to Rising first.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't see that part that they didn't go through Rising. That I did not know.
But nobody really knew that when they were talking about overseas promotion that they were actually talking about their
very short sea.
across the border neighbors in South Korea.
Like literally, like just the country across, right over there.
Yeah, but still, though,
it makes sense though because they had that. They used to use Sasaki, who fought for Rising against Darren Cruikshank, who was kind of like their tattooed Japanese fighter, but he got like damaged with some illegal blows in his last Road FC fight and suffered like a devastating eye injury. So now they need to bring over a new Japanese tattooed guy. Apparently,
exactly. Well, they do. They got in the main event. They got an 0-5 former Yakuza guy. He got tattoos all over him. They choked each other. They like choked each other at the weigh-ins. Hey, first time I've seen Road FC being talked about in like a million years. So
the pandemic devastated Road FC. They haven't done an event in almost over a year.
They were doing like regional fights with like fighters who were like 0-5, 0-10, and like people who like if you go to their tapologies like are virtually non-existent or like have like horrible amateur records.
Yeah, and Road FC was quite the promotion a couple of years ago, so I'm glad to see they're back up and moving. I thought
it was the most underrated promotion like during when they were like running high and all that stuff when they had CLV
I remember in the early Rising days when Rising was doing the whole like we're a fight federation.
Yes.
Where like you saw like the head of Pancrase sitting with the head of Road FC, sitting with the deep head and the KSW guys. And I was like, this is amazing. The original Rising shows were just nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Scott Coker was somewhere around there hanging out with the guy from Bama.
Mm-hmm. They even like flew in the round girls from all the promotions, and each like event, if it had like a certain fighter, used that promotion's round girls.
There was something I really enjoyed about having the banners of all the promotions up there because it's just like that's just so unheard of in MMA that a promotion prides itself in working with so many people.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, better. I'm not going to say better days, but those were unique days. That was a unique period in Rizin.
Exactly.
But
And as
we're
far
going.
as the open weight fight that you were talking about, Andrew, that
Yes.
fight probably ended before we got on.
Oh, okay. I figured. Whatever. I'll see on YouTube at some point. But enough about
Now, can we
kickboxing.
please continue on with the rest of the fight card.
Enough about
Let's get
kickboxing.
to,
We're going to talk MMA now. The good shit, stuff that
well,
bread and butter.
the good, boring shit.
That's
And
not
all
all
of
of
the
it.
Speak for yourself. There were some good fights.
But
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
have
mean,
to.
I understand that, but all of the fights ended via unanimous decision.
That's fine. But we'll talk about the fights, and I think the first fight I got to say was, as I predicted, a boring fight minus the last minute of the round, which, whatever. Fights are 3 rounds. You should realize that you have to try to win all 3 rounds. But Dark Rikuto Shirakawa defeating Jin Aoi in. I thought it was a shitty fight. I just thought it was a really shitty fight altogether. Charles, you've seen Shirakawa and Deep, and this is Aoi's return to Rizin since last year. What do you think about this fight?
I'm sorry, my wife just brought a crab inside, so it's freaking me out.
Oh, okay. We're talking about weird animals. First were snakes and rats. Now we got
apparently
crabs.
it's raining so much that that the water pushed a crab down from the mountains or something. So I'm like, why do you have a jar with a monster inside of our house?
Hey, you got dinner.
But,
You got dinner
okay.
for tomorrow.
Can I get out of it? I'm sorry. So what fight?
Sorry, Dark Shirakawa versus Jin Aoi.
Yeah. I mean, this fight was all right. It was one of in my opinion, one of the less interesting MMA fights, and yeah, not a lot to say about this fight. What do you have to say, Jack?
Well, you passed the ball to the wrong person, because I do not have much to say about this fight. I mean, heading into it, did I really have much to say about it? Not really. This I think the way I described it, if my memory serves me correctly, is that I just sort of said this seems like a fight being on the card for the sake of being on the card. And I mean, it wasn't a horrible fight. I'm not.
Right.
I don't tend to be a big critic of fights in general. I mean, it's a sport. It's not pro wrestling. I can't be like, oh, they didn't hit their finishing move in it. But I mean, it served its purpose on the card, and that was to fill a spot.
See, I disagree. I feel like I expect a certain level of performance or a certain level that if I feel like you're coasting, if this is like BJ Penn's coasting stage,
His bar fights.
Yes, his pre-bar fight, BJ Penn. I think you're doing disservice to not only to yourself but also the fans, and I'm not saying you have to finish your opponent in 10 seconds. It doesn't have to be Mike Tyson level, but there's you're on the biggest stage of your career. Your first fights did not go well, or in case Shirakawa's fights, he got knocked out in his first fight, and in the second fight struggled to finish Boku for some reason, and I always struggled with just really didn't engage with Boku as well. And you put two guys who have troubles in fights, and then you got this. It's kind of like I expect, especially if Rizin's going to be doing some featherweights, and this is your opportunity to be seen be part of the featherweight Grand Prix that they're going to do. I think neither of these guys deserve to be in this Grand Prix. I think they both shit the bed, and I think they through the way that they fought, they told us, okay, we're not ready for this level. We're ready for, I always case Shuto or Shirakawa's Deep. We can't deliver an exciting fight on a big stage or show that we are at the level of a big stage. So I kind of disagree with you on Jack. And yeah, we don't need to see a finishing move, but we just need to show even if you're losing, going down on your sword, I think is more admirable than just kind of coasting. Or we'll talk about the opposite of it in the Takizawa Imanari fight when it comes to engaging. So I don't know. Do you have anything to say to that you just kind of expect a certain level, Jack?
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe my outlook on what I see the sport as is probably different from a lot of people. I mean, I think that when I go to a Blue Jays baseball game, I'm happy if they get a win, and I don't really care if they get a win through a 6-5 back and forth slugfest, or if they get it through a 1-0 pitcher's duel. Even if, you know, a pitcher's duel to me is a more boring thing. Maybe I hold MMA to a high level of a sport that some people might not want to. But I mean, also I think it's maybe some people respectfully view that you shouldn't view it that way. That MMA is more entertainment than it is sport to some people, and that, you know, that's why you should value entertaining fights over you know, successful fighters. I don't know. It's a battle of two philosophies, really. I don't think one is wrong necessarily. I just think one way.
I get it. No, I totally get it. No, it's definitely, you know, it's definitely not like pro wrestling. I think it's kind of a little bit of sport and a little bit of pro wrestling. You have to have a little bit element of both. If it's too sporty, it becomes boring. Becomes pro wrestling, then it becomes too much of the ridiculous. And you gotta have that fine line where I kind of judge it as both. And if it's too much of one, if it's too much of one all the time, then it becomes too boring or too much of a farce. Christian, what do you think of this fight?
Well, since I didn't really pay much attention to this fight, I mean, I'm gonna just, and I really hate to read off of people's articles. My apologies to LJ for this, but I'm gonna just say what LJ put down in her fighter article. It was an initially slow start for both fighters, and Aoi had the upper edge, but Shirakawa brought up the pace with some exciting strikes. Aside from that, I mean, I just wasn't really paying much attention about it, but, you know, Shirakawa done well for somebody who had less experience compared to his opponent.
I think in Shirakawa's case, I think in Shirakawa's case is a case of him. He just did a little bit more. He didn't even really do anything that I felt like, oh yeah, he dominated. He definitely won. He just did a teeny bit more. Also, I forgot to, it should be mentioned as well. Dub says in the chat, Shirakawa is a friend of Azakura. So listen, no matter what happens, Shirakawa is going to always have a place in Rizin as long as the Azakura brothers are there. I don't think the Azakura brothers were in his corner though. I don't think. Did they?
Of course they weren't in his corner because they had their own business to tend to.
I think Mikuru was in the audience. I think Mikuru might have been in the audience though.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I just saw these two guys. I'm like, do you guys deserve to be on this stage if you can't just show a little bit more? I mean, Charles, what do you think? Do you think that they showed enough that they can be brought back?
Well, I mean, they can always be brought back, but I mean, I've said it several times. I just feel like they just wanted to get this show done with. They needed to move the tournament along, and they needed to get something done before the Olympics. And this show did that for them.
Jack, would you bring either of these two back?
I mean, it's a circumstantial thing. I mean, I don't know if either of these guys were necessarily big names. I don't know if their popularity in Japan holds much weight.
Absolutely not.
You mentioned, yeah. Well, I mean, so if there's an interesting matchup you can make, sure, but there's nothing from this match that made me clamoring for either of them to return with much urgency.
Christian?
To be quite honest, it's like Jack said, under the circumstances, you know, who's to say these two won't be bought back? But if you're expecting foreign competitors to come in by September, or at least by the end of the year and into next year, and you got these guys on the card, you know, they would be easy pickings for an international opponent. I mean, all I'm saying is, right now, they would be welcome back, you know, to fight again and Rizin with open arms, but with international competition slowly maneuvering back into the promotion, I don't think these two have a chance.
I also just pointed out that I thought it was funny. Shirakawa, for some reason, decided to paint over or like put makeup on his chest tattoo, as you can kind of see like right there. Meanwhile, Kentaro is like all tattooed over. So I'm not so sure why Shiriko's like, I better cover up my lone tattoo so it doesn't offend anybody or whatever for television.
Or so it doesn't piss off the viewing audience.
Yeah. I just found that really funny. It's like, I gotta cover up this tattoo. But yeah, basically nothing fights from, and I don't think we really need to say much more about that. But let's talk about this next fight. I think we can talk a little bit about it more. And Yachi back in the winning column against
Yuki Tencho Kawana.
Yes.
Which, by the way, when it comes down to Yachi, did any of y'all notice something different about him?
Charles or Jack, did you notice anything different about Yachi the sequel?
He didn't look as muscular as he had in the past, but that might have just been.
I don't know. Look at that picture.
I know that picture in the background's disputing what I said, but he seemed like, especially in some of the other fights, he seemed like ripped, like jacked. But
Jack, did you notice anything different about him? And also, you talked to him, so did he live up to the to new and improved Yachi sequel that he said it?
Let me say this: when we head into this fight, I had skepticism, and I mean, I think it was fair skepticism. I said, he told us that he's done all this different training, he's changed all these things, but someone could just tell you that. Someone doesn't necessarily actually have to put in that work to tell you that. After watching this fight, it became pretty clear that he's done something that has made him a better fighter, at least in my opinion. And it's things are looking good for him heading out of this fight. We're not in the same process we've seen with Yachi for, what's been now, coming up on 3 years. And also one thing I noticed was he has sort of a rebrand. He's wearing different pants now. Yachi the sequel.
Yachi with dark pants. This is his dark phase. This is edgy phase. This is his heel NWO phase.
I only asked that question because he came out to new entrance music, so no more scroll screen, Butterfly to Be. Basically, he basically has a new attitude for himself. It looks like he wants to take, fighting and Rizin seriously, and who better to take it seriously against a Shudo and PFL veteran who also has an itch to grind.
What did you think that Yachi was as dominant as I think he still looked a little bit off in this fight, particularly the second round. It looked like the second round he could have had a finish, for some reason didn't. I think it was it looked like he could have finished by TKO, but for some reason didn't. Charles, what do you think of Yachi? Did he seem like a new Yachi, or was he just, I don't know? Did he still have a little bit of?
He won, which is what he needed to do, but
yeah,
I'm a little less enthusiastic than Jack, I would say. He did. I think he did enough to win, but
yes,
as you were pointing to, he didn't seem to have that killer instinct that he used to have.
No.
And so I was kind of interested to see that, but
I compare the way he used to fight. It was kind of like a child who just got into the circus or to Adventureland or Disneyland or whatever. He used to be jumping. He was like a jumping bean. He was all over the place. You couldn't keep track of this guy. And now he just seems more slow.
It's also this opponent. I mean, I feel like his opponent is kind of what seems to be on somewhat a downward trend of his career currently.
Well, on the contrary, CJ, Kawana is the current Shudo lightweight champion.
Okay.
That doesn't mean a lot anymore.
What are you trying to say?
And Amanda Lucas is the deep openweight champion, despite not having fought there for 6 years.
So those titles don't mean anything worth a damn.
Yeah,
not as much as it used to be. But
sorry, Charles, did you have more to say?
I'm just saying, I'm going to need to see more from Yachi before I believe that he's not still on a downward spiral.
I agree. I absolutely agree with Charles. Jack, how about you?
Same here.
Yeah, well, I want to ask because obviously I don't think that this one fight is enough for me to be all right, I'm buying into the Yachi sequel. He's back. I think that this was a promising performance, and this was a performance that gives me hope that he can turn things around. But he can't turn things around off one performance, especially when you noted the type of opponent he was given. But I do want to ask you guys this, especially Charles. He said he wants to go on this sort of campaign where he defeats all of the domestic champions, and he wants to, face the champion in every promotion. And he wants to, if that's a successful run, use that to sort of thrust himself back into serious matchups. I mean, do you guys see that as a sort of interesting idea, or is that not interesting to you guys?
What do you think, Charles?
I mean, I like the idea of it, but I mean, speaking of, we keep talking about the fights that are happening today. Ohara, who beat him in his last fight, is fighting today, and Ohara couldn't beat the deep lightweight champions. I mean, he's losing to the guy that lost to the deep lightweight champion. So,
well, it was the first Yachi that lost to Ohara. The Yachi sequel, we don't know how it's gonna go.
The first Yachi, like 4 months ago, whatever, that 6 months, whatever that was. I mean, it's a cool idea. I love gimmicks like that. I love angles like that. But
that's kind of like the Four Horsewomen thing that was brought up before with Beth Correa.
Yeah, but I just don't see him beating them, to be honest.
Well, here's the thing: if the way he fought today, if he fights them, I just don't see it's might as well. What's the point if you can't? Well, I always like to point this out. So remember when Dominic Cruz was like away on injury for so long? He had that horrible ACL injury, and he didn't fight for a number of years. And then he came back and he fought Mizugaki and just totally.
That's the most perfect performance of all time.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to see Aviachi was that with this fight. Was like, okay, I've lost all these fights. I'm in a new training camp, new clothes, new whatever. And that's what I want to see when somebody is saying that I'm going to be different when I'm going to return. Or, if you're going to doubt me, watch me. Instead, he kind of basically held down Tensho for like I shouldn't even say 3 rounds. So Tensho almost dominated that 3rd round. And I think, you could have made a case for a split decision if this was like unified rules. But yeah, I mean, Yachi did nothing that made me like, oh yeah, guess what? He's turned it around entirely. He needs to like have like a really he needs to finish a guy like he used to, or something and if he can't do that against the Shuto lightweight champion, then I don't know who can he do it against? I mean, the domestic deep lightweight champion, isn't that it's not Juri Ohara, is it it's Koji Takeda, right?
No, Juri Ohara lost the guy like 4 times, and this means we're going to their website.
I think it's Koji Takeda.
You might be right on that.
So there's Koji Takeda. I think I think Takeda defeats Yachi 9 out of 10 times.
It is. You're right.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: Takeda is going to probably be fighting Satoshi at the Saitama show. That's my big bold prediction. So fight's not going to happen anytime soon. Pancrase lightweight champion, is it still Matsumoto?
I believe so. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I don't see Matsumoto losing to Yachi. I'm trying to think of the other those are like the just the major domestic. Is he? Because here's the thing. So when I saw the Rise's confession video, I saw too much of Satoshi, and so I'm really worried Yachi that they're trying to do this thing where they want Yachi to have a rematch with Satoshi down the line. I really am worried about that, and I don't want to see that. Charles.
So Juri Ohara has lost to Takeda 3 times. They just really wanted him to win that, and it never happened.
Maybe 4 times the charm. Maybe 4 times. Maybe it'll happen the 4th time.
But I will say that speaking of, I think Juri Ohara, if he wins tomorrow, should come back to Rising. I think he should have been brought back after his.
Oh, he should have. It's so clear that Sakaki Bar was like nail biting at the decision. Like, oh, I hope Yachi wins. But yeah, you can't win the way that you did against.
I'll describe this match as this. It's kind of like a tourniquet. Like Yachi has stopped the bleeding of his downward spiral, and I look forward to seeing what happens next.
I do too, but listen, if you want to give, I think if the easiest win you could give Yachi right now, and I wrote this down, I think the only fight that he wins and he can really dominate is against Dominator.
Satoshi Yamamoto?
Yep, I think that's the only fight you can legitimately give him so that he can get like a win, like a definitive like finish as well. Anybody disagree or agree?
But I mean, it's clear that he wants to fight high competition guys. So, I mean, if he's made a turnaround, give him a tough guy, see what happens. He's won his last fight, so he's got a little bit of breathing room. Give him one of the champions he wants.
Jack, what do you think? What do you do with Yachi next?
Well, I mean, he's been really pushing this idea of facing all the champions because he talked about it before his fight and then he mentioned it after his fight. So it's clearly wasn't just a passing thought for him. So I would like to see this executed. But if it can't be done, then yeah, I'm not against some other matchups for him. But I think that, you know, they should be careful with him. That this should be a slow build. And because if we rush him into something, we're very quickly going to be having the same conversation we had before this fight, I think, which is, you know, where do we stand with Yachi?
I know that he's not.
I say if Judy Ohara wins tomorrow, just have that rematch happen.
Oh, I'm not opposed to that. I was also going to say, if I don't know if he's retired because he's never officially said so, but if Kawajiri isn't retired, ask him to do one more fight. I'm sure.
Let Kawajiri be at peace. Kawajiri needs no more punishment.
Or how about the rematch with Gomi? How about a rematch with Gomi?
I think Kawajiri actually, he was a commentator for Rising 28.
Oh, he was? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know they have like 1,000 commentators, so I'm never sure who's exactly commentating because they switch them out.
I mean, it's basically like this podcast. It's like Romper Room.
Yes. Christian, what about you? Any thoughts for Yachi? I know you disagreed with the you disagreed.
I think that the whole motion of him wanting to face off against the domestic champions, Deep, Shudo, and Pancrase, and beat them all just to get to Roberto Satoshi de Sosa, that would be easier and a lot more interesting than him fighting Tatsuya Kawajiri or rematching Gomi. No disrespect to those two. But I do think that in order for Yachi to continue on, he would need to not only face tougher competition, excuse me, but he would also need to take himself more seriously.
I worry.
Excuse me again, but still, in order for us to take Yachi seriously, he needs to take himself more seriously. He needs to take this newfound, you know, aggression of his and just bottle it up into, you know, potentially racking off, you know, some nice training and racking off some wins. Otherwise, if he keeps losing, and obviously he snapped a losing streak with this win over Yuki Tencho Kawana, but if he keeps losing, you know, who's to say we'll never see him in a Rizin ring after this?
Charles, what do you think is the likelihood that Satoshi's opponent will be Yachi at Saitama?
Oh, Yachi? No, don't think so.
Well, actually, not right now. Ain't no way Yachi's ready for Roberto Satoshi de Sosa.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I hope.
Wait till next year, if he gets his act together.
So quickly, Tencho, you bring him back to Rizin, or does he stay? Yeah. Does he stay?
I'm gonna be biased though. I'm going to his restaurant next week, so.
Oh, you can say to him, "Hey, I saw you lose your fights."
You're just saying that because you want to try his food.
It looks good. It looks good on that conventions video. So,
but yeah, I agree. Bring Kawana back at least for a few more fights if Shudo allows him.
Jack, if Shudo allows him, bring back Tencho.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could play a sort of a gatekeeper role. And if you think about it, Rizin, they've had gatekeepers before, but a lot of them at this point are very injured, very old. I think he's in a good part of his career where he can play a gatekeeper role, and it's not like you don't feel like guilty for watching him fight someone.
Well, remember, they had a fighter who they nicknamed the gatekeeper. That was Darian Cruikshank. They literally called him the gatekeeper in the VTRs.
Oh,
right. Until he posted like an offensive video and never got invited back.
Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. We
Okay.
talked. I remember when that first happened, we talked in depth about that, and I felt like, wow, we talked about. Let's not go with that. Hopefully, you learn from his mistake. That's all I'll say. But
Exactly.
we're gonna talk about the some good, some better stuff for the most part of the Bantamweight Grand Prix tournament. We'll start off with the first bout that they had, and Alan Yamaniha defeating Kazuma Kuramoto, and I thought it was an awesome fight. I love this fight so much. Just like, it was really like, this fight was like, had me on my feet. I was enjoying it so much. What do you think of this fight, Charles?
That was nuts. Great fight. I feel like Yamaniha is kind of like this red herring where everyone assumes because he trains with Souza and Koike that he's like a grappler.
Oh, God.
Like, oh, no, he is not a grappler. And I think in the opening first round, I think he broke Kuramoto's orbital bone. And Kuramoto like showed a ton of heart, like back to our moral victory thing.
Oh.
He tried so hard to come back and finish this fight,
yes,
despite the fact that he was like clearly extremely damaged. Like every punch was just affecting him so much. And when he tried to like force those head stomps, and when he tried to just finish the fight, I thought it was great. It was a great fight.
If you want to talk about like a fighter who knows he's losing and he's like, okay, I'm still gonna try to figure out a way how to lose, even if I like will come out like even worse. This is a fight you're gonna point to where and here's the thing, even Kazuma, maybe Kuramoto maybe even thought he was winning because like he was going at the same pace all 3 rounds. He wasn't like, oh, you know what, I'm done by the 3rd round. You know what? Let me just whatever, that's so many fighters do when they feel like they're losing. They just kind of like mentally and physically give up. No, he just like, I compare him to a rhino. He's just always coming at you. Even he doesn't get tired. He's just always just like, he's like the Rock in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Going back to age references, he just keeps on he just keeps on coming at you. Jack, what do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I would say this, similar to Charles, this was probably, in my opinion, the best tournament fight on this card. And, Kuramoto showed heart in the fight. I honestly, I didn't know what to expect going into this fight too much because I knew about both these guys, but I didn't have an extensive amount of knowledge about both of them. But it was just very clear that this was going to be the fight on this card that was going to be probably the closest. I think that's something I said in the podcast leading up to this, that this was going to be the most interesting or maybe one of the closer tournament fights on this event. And I would say in that aspect, it completely delivered.
What about you, Christian?
To be quite honest, I didn't really see much of this fight because between this fight and the Takizawa Imanari fight, I was KO'd. I was asleep, so I didn't really get a chance to see either one of these fights, and I guess I'll have to see them now as punishment.
Please do. Let's definitely see this one. This fight was like, it was great.
Yeah.
But
it was also
it sucks. It sucks that Yamaniha, Alan Yoshihiro Yamaniha, lost this fight because he
No, he won. He won, Christian. He won.
Oh, really? He won?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It was a very close fight, especially near the end, but he won, yeah.
Yamaniha won this fight as a way to, show that he has at least a foot in standing when it comes down to being alongside his Bonsai Jiu-Jitsu teammates. And, I can only hope that when it comes down to him going into the semis or quarterfinals of this Rizin Japan Bantamweight Grand Prix, hopefully with more wins will come more respect and more focus on Bonsai Jiu-Jitsu. As far as Kuramoto goes, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Rizin ring more often. Would y'all?
Oh, absolutely. No,
absolutely. The guy's a stud.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the fight game is so cruel. It's just like one big punch in the opening round, and it's just spending the rest of the fight trying to undo that. And it was just like an undoable task.
And here, I don't know if he couldn't see out of his eye. I'm assuming if his orbital is broken, and just like, I don't know if this picture's from when it happened, but like, I'm assuming he fought that most of that fight with one eye. So he's already got like, so if he was at a severe disadvantage, yet still pushed it forward and still tried to win. When
I mean, I assumed he fought most of the fight essentially on autopilot. Like, there's no driver in the driver's seat. He was just going for wrestling and trying to finish. He had no idea what was going on. It was my general thoughts. Also, Yamaha is like deceptively like young looking. When you looked at him, you're like, oh, this is a nice up and coming. Oh my God, he's 35 years old. You're like,
oh yeah,
he's not that young at all.
Also, despite being from Banzai Jiu-Jitsu, I will faithfully say that I don't think that Yamaniha's grappling is even on the stratosphere of Koike's or Satoshi's. No. The fact that he had like 2 submissions, he had a triangle and a guillotine on Kazuma and couldn't finish him with either. And I'm pretty sure if Satoshi or Kleber gets you in either of those, well, we've seen them get in triangles. You're done for. Like it's it's game over.
Also, back to Jack's thing, this felt like the one tournament fight where it's like, of this night of fight, on this night, this is the one fight where I feel like one of the winners could go pretty far in the tournament.
Yeah.
And unlike some of the other ones, which seem like legacy fights.
So what do you, so for Yamaniha, like who do you think would be the most interesting fight to make with him next, Charles?
So they're not doing a random drawing for the next round.
So they're not. So is that Wikipedia?
Yeah, they're not going to do a random drawing. His next opponent will be Kenta Sawa.
We got to think about it. Fuji TV is involved, and Fuji TV is just like, you need to make sure Kai Asakura is on the New Year's Eve card. So you need to give him someone he can beat on the September card. And so they're not going to have like Naoki Inoue fight Kai Asakura in September. So they're going to pick it. And who do you put Yamaniha against? I mean, I don't know, put him against like a Motoya or someone like that.
No, they're going to put him up against Kenta Takizawa. I'm looking at the bracket right now.
Wait, is that bracket? I know that is that Wikipedia bracket. So
that Wikipedia bracket's not real. It's not like a real bracket.
That's what I thought. I thought that was a so yeah. It depends on what Fuji TV. Listen, if you, I mean, if you want to give him an easy win, I think Kai probably defeats him like handily. But I don't know, like I guess if you want Kai and Naoki in the finals, then like that's the sure way to do it.
I mean, we could talk about this now. I mean, what do? You put, my opinion, you put like Naoki Inoue versus Ogikubo. That's a fun fight. Mm-hmm. You put Kai Asakura against Kintaro. And you put Yamaniha against Motoya. And whichever one I'm forgetting is the other one you put together. The guy that beat up Takizawa versus
Otsuka.
Yeah, the one that no one cares about.
Yeah, I think that's probably what
you don't care about him.
I think that's what you gotta do. Is that I think that sounds about right. If Fuji TV, if that's the direction they're going. Well, I think the Saitama show that's supposed to be on Fuji, right? Rizin Theory will be on Fuji.
I'm not aware if that's gonna be on Fuji TV. It might, but I do know that essentially Fuji TV for New Year's Eve is going to want Kai Asakura there, and so they're going to want to give him someone. And I think Kintaro is a lot of fun because it's going to be a punching affair, but it's also a fight that Kai should win.
That's a tough fight though. That is a tough fight.
Well, I mean, any fight's a tough fight. Any fight could end in a way, but it feels like one that's especially. But what you give him like Otsuka and just really show your hand.
Well, that's the thing is if you want him an easy win, I think Otsuka is the easiest in that case. Or if you want to do Ogikubo again, I think it goes the same way as the first fight did.
I think it's wise. I mean, it's very wise. They're not doing a draw for this round because that would just give away. That could run the risk of giving away some of their biggest fights, and they were honestly quite lucky in the opening round that they just didn't have huge matchups. I mean, we saw some, but the booking, it was randomly drawn, but the way it looked almost came off as it was manually inputted by somebody. Anyway, I think that the thing that should be done here is that but will be done is that they're gonna protect a lot of the guys they want to see in that final four. So like Kai, Inoue, people like that. But I think, in my opinion, the thing they should do with Allen is they should make him a matchup. I like, Charles, your suggestion of putting him against Motoya, because you can have these sort of matchups in the next round where someone is expected to win and move past. But I think you should still have at least some fights where it's okay, this is still kind of a toss-up. That's kind of what the first round was. We saw a lot of matchups where we knew who was going to win, but there still was those toss-ups. I think you need to have that in every round to some extent.
And some people, I think we should move on to the next fight because some people in the chat were talking about this fight. And
well, actually, since we already spoiled pretty much the winners of all the other, of the 3 other fights, should we continue to talk about these fights?
I'll talk about it right now. Kentaro defeated Kuya Ito. Takafumi Otsuka defeated Shion. And as you can see in here, well, not from this picture, but Kenta Takizawa ran away from Mazukatsu Minari for 3 rounds and somehow won. So,
nah, he ran away from him, but he avoided getting leg locked, which of course is Imanari's specialty.
I'm not gonna lie. When this happened, I jumped out of my chair and I was like,
everyone in my apartment was freaking out when this happened.
So Charles, you've been watching Imanari for a long time. He's been I don't think we expected Imanari to fight any differently than he's fought since his first fight.
First off, I love this fight. People were complaining about it. I thought this fight was amazing. It was everything I wanted it to be. On an event filled with like weird things that happened, this was strangely refreshing and normal. And for people that hadn't seen Imanari, like the Japanese stream had like a chat box next to it, and people were talking about Imanari all night. My friend who has just recently gotten my wife's friend who's recently gotten MMA was just like, she's like, this guy's scary. Who the hell is this guy that just keeps like running at him with his hands down? He's like a monster, like doing this pose and just like running at him. It was great.
Takizawa was like, it was like Imanari was on fire and Takizawa was trying his best to get away from him, as like it was like he had a disease or something. And it was like trying to get
so clear that he was absolutely terrified of him. He could have, in my opinion, he should have easily knocked Imanari out. Imanari's over 40 years old and is no threat on the feet, like is literally no threat. And he was throwing like one punch and like running for his life, which I guess if you don't want to like have a debilitating injury is what you do. But I feel like if he would have committed, he could have finished it.
Jack, have you ever seen an MMA fighter who won a fight by running away? Because I think this might be the first case I could think of.
I've probably seen that before, but I've never seen it with such fear in this instance. It's more people sort of running the clock. I have to say, when there was the Imanari roll and Takizawa had himself in trouble and he was panicking, and he was genuinely panicking. I have to say, my mind immediately went to thinking about like National Geographic documentaries where it's an animal consuming its prey, and it's sort of tragic to watch in a sense, because you see something that's fighting for its life but will eventually be consumed.
That's the best way to. That's the best.
Because he was doing everything. He was frantically grabbing the ropes, committing probably a dozen fouls within 6 seconds.
That's what I was also noticing too, is just like, how does Beinoa get a red card for rope grabbing? And this guy doesn't even get a warning.
He was
like
hugging
literally grabbed the ropes and like tried to jump out of the ring. He was like, give me the fuck out.
Well, it was interesting because it didn't even seem like he was trying to grab the ropes. It just seemed like he was doing literally everything. He was just looking for things to do to get out of the position.
What we all basically saying? He was hugging the ropes like trying to find a new best friend or something?
Yeah, he was hoping his new best friend was going to help him not get his leg ripped off.
It was like watching a crackhead just trying to run for his life. Like this guy was just like, he was like freaked out and was like, get the hell off me. Yeah. Jack is right. He absolutely was just like, fear of God. I got to get my leg out of here.
It's something
no matter what it takes.
It's something you hardly see in MMA, where you see someone who is genuinely fearing for what's coming next. You don't see often in knockouts because the person gets, woozy from being hit. You saw a completely sober-minded person realize the consequences of what just happened.
It led to a very interesting fight where it's just like,
oh yeah,
it's just like, I'm not going to throw combos. I'm going to like run away, and like he won because of the damage he did, but the damage he did was because Imanari was just being Imanari and running at him. and like
Well,
having the end of the rounds where he was getting lit up because he was running at him.
here's the thing. So the third round, he was, even though I was actually striking very well.
Yeah, just
And
hilarious.
I felt like I think unify rules, you can maybe see a reason to give him. I mean, I don't think when you look at the fight as a whole, but here's the thing as well. Imanari was one who was engaging this entire fight. He's going after him. You have Takizawa, who's not engaging. By the way, numerous times the referee had I think it was Wada, who was the referee, was telling them like, you guys got to fight.
I thought that was weird too. I was like, I mean, Imanari is like running at the guy. I don't know what you expect him to do. It's Takizawa who's running away.
And did you like how I think what happened was that Takizawa would go for a punch. Imanari would like feign being like knocked down. He tried to do what Verdum tried to do with Hunt in their fight, and like, oh yeah, you knocked me down. Come on down. And Hunt's like, I'm not doing that. Even Hunt wasn't like running away from Verdum. Yeah, I lost a lot of respect for Takizawa, by the way, for this fight. Like, I was like, you are afraid of this 40-year-old gremlin who you can easily knock out. And like,
that was my thing. It was, as I thought he could have clearly knocked him out.
Yeah, like,
I mean, come on, like, is he not terrifying? Like, come on, guys.
Oh, he is.
He is, but like the way that he, like, Takizawa, like you said, he was legit. I think like legitimately afraid, not like, afraid of engage. Like it was like I don't think the only people who I've ever seen scared in an MMA fight was probably when Bader took on Johnson in their match. And that's Rumble Johnson. That's an outlier, because anybody would be afraid.
Takizawa was as afraid to fight Imanari as I would be afraid to fight Imanari. It was like, you're not a professional fighter. What is happening?
It was almost like comedy level of like.
It was like watching Shinya Aoki in the mixed rule match against Gianotsu.
Exactly.
Yes, I loved that fight, and I remember that fight fondly. But still, we all get what you mean by that. When it comes down to fighting Imanari, you got to make sure he doesn't grab your legs.
Maybe I'm thinking of things. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit for being terrified. But like, the way I think of it is like, in most fights, people go in there with the expectation that worst case scenario, you could get knocked out or injured and blah blah blah. But when you think about a fight with Imanari, you're talking about what could possibly be a career-ending injury if he gets you where he wants to get you. So I don't know. Maybe I think it's a perspective thing that guys who face Imanari, they usually don't think about the possibility of leaving the cage, or leaving the ring. Well, I'm being a bit hyperbolic here, with one less limb.
Well, I don't think Imanari's ever been a guy who deliberately, like, I can't recall, like, it's not like Aoki, who's legitimately like broken people's arms and legs. I don't think Imanari has a history of that. I get it, being afraid of leg locks, though.
It takes like half a second to do that, though.
But
this feels like a classic example of just like, take the win and move on.
I think
he's like, whatever, I got past Imanari, I'm still in the tournament.
But like,
these fools have the attention span of goldfish. If I have a good next fight, I'll still have both my legs. And no one will remember this.
Like, is he gonna run away? Is Takizawa gonna run away from Kai because he's afraid that Kai is gonna knock him out? If they were to have a fight, it's like it was just.
I mean, I would pay to watch that.
I would, well, given the Osaka reaction to him, like they booed him after this fight. They were.
He was getting booed mercilessly when the fight was over.
And here's the thing: there is a blueprint to defeat Imanari. This isn't rocket science. There is obvious ways to beat him. Heel hook, leg lock defense, and knock him out. That's how it's.
I will say this, that when you're in a tournament that could potentially be up to 4 fights, in your very first fight, you don't really have to prove anything, because if you win, your ticket is already punched to the next fight. So I don't know, maybe he was just saying, I don't have any real incentive to do anything high risk that could put me where he wants me to be. So I'm just going to have this boring fight. I mean, is that...
It was not boring.
I would agree with you, except for what you previously said about how terrified he was. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like a calculated game plan, but it was literally like, fuck, I'm running to the other side of the ring.
I can imagine he had the best sleep of his life after that fight was over, because he just had to, that demon was just out of his life.
That's that's the thing. If you punched him, Taki's Imanari goes down the ground. He just like kick his legs a little bit, then he comes up, does then it's like okay, he's not going to the ground. He was like you said, he was terrified. He was running around the entire ring. I was dying laughing.
Yeah.
I had never seen somebody just so afraid to engage on that level for any major MMA promotion. I had never seen it before, and I know just Imanari is just funny to watch in general because he's just there with his hands down. He's not caring.
He was doing that he was like head bobbing thing the whole time.
Yeah, he was vibing. He was air guitaring or whatever. I have no idea. He was dancing in the ring. He also
had a pretty funny post fight interview where they're like, "What was your impression of the fight?" "I lost." "You okay?" And they're like, "Next question." Like, what are you gonna do in the future? He's like, "I need to practice touching my opponent more." And it was like this is the weirdest answers. So it's great moment for everybody.
Dude, that's easier said than done. I mean, if he wasn't doing all that damn running, he would have been able to touch his opponent, actually toe tag his opponent.
I just think it would have been more interesting tournament-wise had Imanari won. Just like the matches that imagine like Imanari versus Inoue. I would just be so intrigued by Imanari versus anybody would be just like an intriguing matchup, in my personal opinion. Takizawa, like going forward, I don't know. It bores me. I just don't think it makes an interesting. He just is not an interesting, especially at this fight. Running away for 3 rounds. Like I'm less interested.
I'd say that there's definitely the problem is like the tournament was very ambitious with like 16 fighters.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I think there's like tiers of people that people care about. There's like top tier, like people care about Kai, they care about Naoki now, they cared about Isuatari, they care about Ogikubo. Maybe underneath that's like Motoya. And then bottom tier is probably Takizawa, like Otsuka, people like that.
But people legitimately cared about Imanari. It was like you have Yamaniha, Kuramoto, Imanari, and like you said, people in the chat were going crazy when he hit when he finally hit an Imanari roll, and so it was just I just think it would have been so much more interesting had he had gone forward and had he been able to win. I really it's just matchups that just like intrigue me. Because that's the thing about Imanari. You know what he's going to do, but you also don't know what he's going to do. Like what his antics are going to be. I think it was just. Sorry, go ahead.
I think Takizawa wakes up screaming because he still sees Imanari just like walking at him like this, whatever he was doing.
He gets he remembers when he was trying to get out of the Imanari roll.
It's PTSD.
He wakes up just grabbing his covers frantically.
Like I don't know if he has kids, but like I don't know if his kids like ever does like a full roll. He just like has like flashbacks or something, and just like runs and into his bedroom, and closes his door.
It takes the extreme. It's like, why do you Vaseline your legs every night? Can't see Imanari comes in.
And you know what? RPIG had a good comment, but I'm gonna reiterate on that. Takizawa probably wakes up like he's in a hentai movie because he knows damn well that Imanari's leg lock is like the tentacles.
That's true.
Also, do you notice Imanari did not carry on the curse?
Yes, and I'm sorry for the NSFW joke, by the way. I'm just trying to be real.
RGIP
Imanari did not have Aoki in his corner. Imanari, I think, was seconded by his wife, like someone else. Like Imanari is trying to break the Aoki, seconded me, so I lost curse.
RGIP also says he hopes to see Imanari again in the reserve fight. Listen, if they're going to do like one person from A and column B, listen, you give it to Imanari. You give that shit to Imanari. Kuramoto maybe, but I don't know how long that orbital bone that can take a long time to heal. Even when it's healed, it's like
I say you let him sit out and heal for a bit.
Yeah, give it to. I say you give any reserve bout to Imanari. Just because, imagine just like I don't know, at Saitama on New Year's Eve, and we just see him. I would just love to see his antics on a New Year's Eve.
So, like, what do they? I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but like, what do they really do with this tournament, time frame wise? Because Charles, when you said that the tournament was sort of, I don't know the word you used, but sort of like optimistic with 16 fighters. When I heard 16 fighters, I was like, okay, they need to like get moving on this like really quickly. And we're just finishing up the first round and there's 3 more fights. is the plan, and this is pure speculation, is the plan to do the final 2 rounds on New Year's Eve?
I would say that most Japanese tournaments traditionally do the semifinals and the finals in the same night. So you go into September with 8 fighters, leave with 4, do the last 2 fights on New Year's Eve.
So that would probably be when it would only make sense to have a reserve bout on that. I know when they did the lightweight Grand Prix, they didn't have a reserve bout on that show, but I wouldn't be against them doing it, especially since we've on this show had a pretty good case for reserve bouts in one-night tournaments.
RGIP also asks, I guess this would be a non-title match. What about Imanari versus Horiguchi?
That would be a fight everybody would want to see, even though it would be like a mismatch because you would have Horiguchi, the dominant champion, facing off against a legend, obviously a legend in his prime in Imanari, even though many people would think he's over the hill.
I don't think
has been.
I don't think he's over the hill. I think that's the wrong term because he's still good at what he does, and he's still entertaining to watch. Jack, we were talking about before, what we expect from MMA fights, with Aoi versus Shirakawa. And so, like, when we have, like, the pro wrestler, I think that Imanari gets it, like, both aspects of the sports. That just, like, the entertainment aspect, because, like I said, Jack, as somebody who, what do you think of Imanari's antics? Do you want to see more of that in MMA, or are you just kind of like, were you put off by like his in-ring antics?
So I mean, I don't mean to sound pretentious when I talk about how I view MMA. I actually think I have a pretty laid back view of the sport where you can do whatever you want. I think that matches should be made off wins and losses. But at the end of the day, if you want to do antics, I'm not going to be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. At the end of the day, he had Takizawa terrified at one point, fighting for his life inside that ring. For me to put down his antics would be simply putting down a tactic, a game plan, which almost worked for him.
I don't even know if it's a game plan. It's just something he does in every fight.
It's not even a game plan. It's a way of life.
He literally does that in every fight. If you watch any of his fights from like 10 years ago, he does. I love it. Like, he still does the same thing. When you talk about a fighter who's never changed, yeah, Charles, he's legitimately has never changed.
Nope. He's been scaring the shit out of his opponents for years.
And you know what? In a world where sports, we always get the praise of everyone's adapting, everyone's evolving. You know what? Respect to someone for just going, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to evolve. Yeah. I'm just going to be the exact same person for 2 decades.
I mean, his leg lock game is like a testament to his inability to evolve. Didn't he say the only reason he does leg locks is because he was like really bad at passing guard? And he was like, I should just learn a move that doesn't require me to pass guard. So he just only concentrated on leg locks.
I love it. So he said he's bad at the basics of jiu-jitsu, which is guard passing. That is like a fundamental part of jiu-jitsu. And he's like, what can I do to be basically he what is it? He's of the path of least resistance. The laziest way out. I'll break this guy's foot. I love that. I absolutely love that. I wish more. Sometimes MMA fighters, sometimes it's not good to beat everything. It's good to, what Bruce Lee said: do one hole 1,000 times.
I always love. I'm not saying I want this in every fight, but I love it when an event has like a specialist on it. I love it when you get like a Damian Maya or like an Imanari or someone on a card. You're just like, or like a Satoshi. It's like if it goes to their realm, they will win. But can the opponent stop that? It's always an interesting match for me.
So I think we're all in agreement. Please bring. I want to say bring back Imanari again. I don't care for him back.
Please bring back Imanari.
Charles, bring back Imanari.
100%. Yeah.
Jack,
carry him out to the ring on the throne he deserves.
Jack, bring back Imanari.
Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you consider this broke, then you should have stopped booking him over a decade ago. I say bring him back.
Maybe a reserve bout, Imanari versus Shuto, your guy Shuto.
No, give your boy Shion a chance.
Okay, yeah.
Speaking of Shion, since Andrew liked to pick favorites, Hiroki Shion Yamashita lost to old Purple Trunks himself, Taka Fumiotsuka.
Oops, I got the wrong picture, but Yeah, Otsuka him.
Yeah.
I would say the third round though, Xian did try to
Knock him out.
he did try. I guess
Yeah.
I guess he got the moral victory if we're gonna continue on that trend.
If I rolled my
not going to
eyes any
continue on
harder,
that
they'd
trend.
pop out of my head.
But Otsuka just Otsuka I think had multiple times to finish him, didn't, because he's Otsuka. I don't know. He just doesn't finish people even when he can. I don't know why he does that. I think he clearly could have like had the rear naked choke on him twice, maybe 3 times. Charles, you've seen Otsuka in Deep. You've probably seen him like in 1,000 other promotions as well because he pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
Does he just not seem to finish people when he has that opportunity? Just kind of like because he can do 3 rounds, he'll just do 3 rounds.
I mean, I feel like maybe it's like a fight IQ thing. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, it was kind of dangerous too because I feel like in this fight especially, he's getting. I mean, Xian was like really winding up and trying to knock him out near the end of the fight.
Oh, it was like all first round. It was all first round knockout. And then like at that, he was just like, I have no more energy left to do this.
Yeah, so I feel like Otsuka probably should have played it safer. But he made it. I think Otsuka made it more competitive than it needed to be. No offense to your new favorite fighter, but I thought Otsuka could have had a better strategy going into the fight.
I think so. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is gonna be like, this sounds like cop out. This sounds like I just didn't watch the fight, but I feel like this fight and the next one are 2 where I really don't have much to say about them. They just seemed like fights,
They happened.
Yeah,
they happened.
They existed.
They happened, and if the winner of those fights wins the tournament, something terribly wrong has happened to the world.
And then
yeah, exactly.
And then Rizin goes out of business. Sakakibara retires at 50 or whatever he is now.
Was this sort of the predictable outcome? I think so. I think that Xian is sort of he's a hot and cold fighter, and we got the cold on Sunday. So
they was a little disappointed because he had such the way that he beat Sone in like the qualifying match. It's like, okay, this guy knows what he has to do to win, and I think he realized that for round 1, but he wasn't planning on round 2 and 3 happening. I think by the 3rd or 4th takedown, he should have realized, okay, Otsuka's going to take me down as much as possible. So eventually
gets veteran performance.
Hey, veteran, listen. If your strength is, takedowns, do what Otsuka did. If your strength is running away, do what Takizawa does. If your leg locks or your things, do what Imanari does. Listen, I'm not going to follow somebody for fighting to their realm as I think you said, Charles. Chris, any thoughts on this? I think I agree with Jack. It's kind of just like it was there. It was a fight and it happened.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, you keep picking favorites. I mean, I think that you relied a little bit too heavily on Xian trying to make something exciting, but you forgot that Otsuka was there to spoil the party.
But also, Otsuka had, it was like the Cinderella story. I was like, okay, we got somebody who's...
And it's like I said in the preview, Otsuka, who's been basically fighting his ass off for like 20 years, the dude was in a redemption. The dude's in a redemption story. The dude's trying to revitalize his career. I mean, seriously, the dude just wanted another chance at trying to make, his career mean something. And I'm surprised that he even won this bout, really, even though I didn't see much of it, because again, I was knocked out. But still, point of the matter is, Otsuka wins. I just don't know how he'll do in the second round.
That's the thing, is that he's what's the term? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Yeah,
exactly.
So he'll always be the guy who faces the guy, but he'll never be the guy who beats the guy.
I want to add that since Christian said that he was knocked out during this fight, this makes Rizin 29 not the first card to have only decisions there in MMA fights, since Christian was knocked out.
I was going to say that this was almost as good as the famed UFC knockout card that didn't have a single knockout on it. Might take the title, but
listen,
what's the line from Pulp Fiction when he's talking to Bruce Willis? If you're going to make it, you would have made it by now. So
Mm-hmm.
And listen, Otsuka, when he loses in the semifinals or he can even make the finals potentially. I don't think so, but when he.
Well, let's think about it. Who else? I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the tournament left that loses to Otsuka.
I personally though,
Takizawa.
Maybe Yamaniha if he gets like
Takizawa
out grappled. Oh, I keep forgetting. He ran so much. He's like run out of my mind. I
wish we could say Imanari.
Tournament.
I wish we could say, oh, I think Imanari and Otsuka is going to be a great match. That's the thing, is that my mind's.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, he could beat him. He could beat him, yeah. He could also beat Yamaniha if he turns it into a grappling thing. But
sorry,
I like that he's still in the tournament though. I think that whoever you're going to match him up with, if he loses to them, that's a respectable victory for someone to pick up on their way through the tournament. And I mean it's more respectable than someone beating someone who would be like a 9-8 fighter at that point. I mean, he's a veteran. He is I guess you could consider him a gatekeeper in the next fight.
He's also fought so many people in this tournament. Maybe they could like pick one of the people that he hasn't fought. Just like
that's the thing. I think the one. Let's see. I don't think he's fought Inoue or Kai.
Essentially, hasn't been. Inoue used to fight in deep, but like barely. Like Inoue and Kai are the only two people that like didn't fight in deep. So,
yeah, that's like in Otsuka. Like I said, Otsuka once fought Rafael dos Anjos a million years ago. So yeah, listen, not Rafael, but Otsuka, he'll lose in this fight or in the next fight. And guess what? He'll still be fighting 10 years from now. Charles will be going to deep shoots 10 years from now. He'll still be fighting in deep.
Yeah. I missed it when he was wearing like the gladiator like half pants, where those like gladiator short things. Doing his best Melvin Manhoof impression.
So what about Sheehan? Do you think we'll ever see Sheehan again? Do you think he's worthy of being like part of hold on, let me just quickly say this. Sakakibara said something about a voting for the reserve ballot or something. So I don't know what they're gonna do with that. Sorry, Christian, go ahead.
That's interesting.
Well, Andrew, you're the only one that hopes Sheehan will come back, right?
I think he's an interesting hand to have, kind of a jobber to start.
Oh, God. The good hand thing. Come on, man. You don't want to see him job out. You want to see him excel. You want to see him shine. You want to see him at least get some lion's share of getting put over. You don't want to. I think
with this fight, we saw a
ceiling. Yeah, as I was saying, you don't want to see a talent that young, as Yamashita is way younger than Otsuka. You don't want to see a talent that young turn into a jobber. Otherwise, Taiga.
Wait, sorry. What? Sheehan versus who?
I mean, I'm just saying.
He said he doesn't want to see Sheehan turn into Taiga. Is what he said.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, exactly.
I don't think Sheehan's reached that level yet. Where like, because Taiga was like high level one point, and then just like roller coaster like way down. Like, what is he? 22 or 23?
24.
I'm always extremely shocked when I hear how young Taiga is.
That's the thing, is that like for like just like his downfall and at his age, he's literally had an entire career before the age of 30. When listen, when think about that, when you compare to like Daniel Cormier, who started when he was like 31 or 30, or Randy Couture, and just think of like their career trajectories going up and down, and when they stopped versus when Taiga, like where he started and where he's on an upturn now, but when he was diving down, he was like 21, 22. It's like, and I think Mike Skyte said it best, that like he's literally had like he's washed up at 21, and that's like such an absurd thing to say. I don't think Sheehan, you can't put him on that level because I don't think he'll reach that level as an MMA fighter. I could be wrong, we'll talk about Kuya Ito in the next match, who went 0-5 in his career, but in the beginning. So yeah, so stranger things have happened, but.
I wag my finger at you, Taiga. You call him washed up. He's coming off a win. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Taiga isn't washed up. He's still doing well. Like, it's just like he's not his fights against Taiju were awesome.
Listen, wait till he fights my guy Kan Nakamura. I think Nakamura is gonna fuck up Taiga. That is my big poll prediction right here.
Well, then one of my friends will cry, because one of my friends is a huge Taiga fan and cries during his fights.
Is she one of those? Is it just like
yeah?
Listen, Kan Nakamura.
If you can imagine me at Rising shows, it's like me with 7 women. It's kind of like a weird people's fan group I go with.
Listen, Khan Nakamura is a shit talker, and he'll shit if he wins. He'll even do more shit talking after that fight. Charles, I hope you pay attention to that fight. That's going to be an exciting fight. I cannot wait for that match.
I will say though, when you talk about who you're bringing back, I mean, Rising's already talking about another tournament at a different weight division, and I just feel like there's not going to be that many open spots. I mean, they don't do that enough events to have excess baggage, so to speak. I mean, Shia might come back, but I feel like the beauty of Rising is you send him down to a local promotion, picks up a couple wins, gets back to the big show.
Here's what I like to say. So, this is the one comparison I'll make with One and Rizin. I think Sakakibara wants to have all this, while Chatri just is lying through his fucking teeth and knows that none of this is true, and he has no problem. I think that Sakakibara legitimately wants to have all this stuff, and he so wants to have it, and by saying it almost kind of forces him to try to do it. Won't always happen. I don't think but on the other side, you have Chachi, who says like, "Oh, we have 800 billion people who watch our show." So, and I think he knows he's lying through his teeth, or that they're going to be working with UFC or whatever it is, and they make it seem like they're bigger than they are when they're not. So I like that Sakakibara is, at least he's ambitious, but I think he's sometimes too ambitious for his own good.
Well, this could come off as a completely pretentious way to look at things, but it's like two different ways to run a political campaign. Where if you do a political campaign and you say that we're so successful, here's our polling data that we're so ahead and we're going to win this, and we look forward to everyone supporting us. That's one way to run your campaign. Or you could run your campaign as, okay, we need a ton of support. We're the underdogs. We need every single possible person to vote for us. And I think Rizin is probably more the latter, where if they think they need more support from people, they're going to let people know. They'll do a fundraiser, or they'll say, we could do this, or the pandemic could completely mess up this idea we have. They're very blunt about those types of issues.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the case of our current president here in the United States, Joe Biden, you would probably want to build back better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about the last fight, the unofficial main event, I guess you could say. Kintaro, my favorite tattooed fighter, defeating Kuya Ito. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a pretty exciting fight. I didn't expect Kuya Ito to strike with Kintaro. I was like the complete opposite game plan that I thought that you should go into a fight. But no, Kuya Ito held his own. Charles, what do you think of this fight?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's Ito's an interesting cat. I mean, it reminds me of almost like a Celine Haga kind of, where you open your career with essentially a ton of losses and then completely turn it around. And when you come out to the cage with Miyata in your corner, you kind of expect a guy to go for a takedown, but that didn't seem to be the case. It was definitely after watching Otsuka fight, it was kind of nice to see a change of pace. They fought what to quote Bane, you fight like a younger man with nothing held back. It was like two guys just throwing haymakers at each other. I was just like, I feel like older, more experienced fighters wouldn't be fighting like this, but it sure is fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, well, just to talk about Ito for a second, to me, he was the guy who I wanted to bill as an underdog heading into this tournament, more than Xian even, because like Charles mentioned, you look at his record, it's so weirdly different that clearly something happened at some point, whether it was the matchups he got or the training he got, that just made him a much better fighter. And he instantly won over me when he walked out to a Perfume song before his fight. So the fight was pretty entertaining, honestly. More hectic than I expected. And I personal point of privilege, I will say that I was kind of bitter about this fight when it happened, because we were touching the fifth hour of the broadcast, and I knew that we had seen a lot of decisions, and it was getting very early in the morning. So I mean, looking back on the fight, I have a nice perspective on it, but I mean, in the moment, I was sort of gassed out. Not to blame the fighters or Rizin for that.
Mm-hmm. I know, Christian, you were, I think, maybe rocked or half knocked out during this fight, but from what you saw, what were you able to discern from it?
Well, from what I seen of the fight, I mean, I was disappointed that Kentaro Masakiri, aka Yuto Hokamura, didn't straight up dominate Ito to the point where Ito would just go ahead and call it in. But Kentaro did enough to secure himself the win and prove that he'll be dominant. He'll be preparing himself to be dominant for this quarterfinal bout, no matter who he's up against. And to also make another chisel to down this highlight reel type of knockout. But still, point of the matter is, I know that you, Andrew, interviewed Kentaro. Maybe you should get a chance to talk to him again before the quarterfinals of this tournament in September. And, we'll ask him, did he really think he dominated all three of those rounds in that fight, even though, of course, they scored fights as a whole in Japan, especially in the Rizin Fighting Federation. But
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but still, Kentaro, he dominated this fight. He didn't dominate enough to get the finish, but he did dominate enough to get the win, and that's enough for his bottom line to go into the rest of this tournament as a fully focused young fighter.
I unfortunately don't have a picture from right after the whole fight, but Kentaro's face was fucked up. It was legitimate. I think he looked worse than Kuya when the fight was over. His face was all bruised up, and I was like, Kuya put a beating on him, a surprising I didn't know Kuya could strike this hard. Most of his wins come by decision. So I just thought that as this fight goes on, it's going to favor Ito, but no, Kentaro, he was able to get pretty much a did enough decision win. I guess that's what I like to call it. What do you think about Kentaro's chances in this tournament, given who's won so far, Charles? Do you think he can make it to to the finals?
He make it to the finals? No, I don't think he'll make it to the finals. He can make it to the, depending on the matchmaking, he can make it to the semifinals, I think. But I think anyone else who makes it to the semifinals is going to be a pretty good grappler. Or be a better striker. So he's gonna have problems with anyone else in the finals.
Who do you think is the toughest matchup for him?
The toughest matchup for him?
Yeah.
I think Ogikubo would be a bad matchup for him.
Oh, I can kind of see that.
Just because of the wrestling angle. But his striking's kind of rough. It's like a brawler type. And so, Naoki Inoue is more of a technician who's also very good on the ground. And Kai Asakura punches really hard. So I think he has several people that can be difficult for him.
You know what else would be a tough matchup for Kentaro? Imanari would have been a tough matchup as well.
I thought you were going to say Takizawa, the one guy that I refuse to keep bringing up.
Oh, no. Takizawa will be an easy matchup for Kentaro.
Well,
there's no way Takizawa's going to be in the finals.
Well, first of all, remember, Takizawa does have a win over Kentaro. He has that weird split decision win that was shouldn't have been the split decision win.
Well, hey, that would be a nice form of revenge for Kentaro.
I hope so. Well, here's the thing. The only way that Kentaro wins that is if he knocks him out in the first round, 10 seconds, and then Imanari's soul is what it can rest easily now, knowing that he lost against this guy who ran away from 3 rounds. Jack, who do you think would be a good matchup for Kentaro if you were given the choice to match him up against in the semifinals? Or quarterfinal, whatever. Was this quarterfinals or semifinals? I can't do math.
This is the quarterfinals. Semifinals are next.
Yeah. Gotcha. So semifinals.
The quarterfinals is next, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, for the next round.
Honestly, I think that the way it's going to be from here on is that the people who Rizin want to make it into the top 4 are going to make it into the top 4 because they're going to be given the matchups to put them into the top 4. And whether Kentaro succumbs to that due to them giving him a matchup where he's going to face someone who will beat him happens, or he's given a matchup where it's actually a pretty good matchup and he has a chance of making it into the finals, well, we'll just have to wait and see on that front. But honestly, I can't think of a good matchup off the top of my head. But the chances of him making it to the semifinals, I'm a little skeptical about it, but there's certainly guys in the tournament that he can beat. yeah, there is guys in the tournament he can beat still.
Our good friend Code May Day has a good point. Kintaro versus Kai because of the outsider connection.
I was just thinking
Oh.
that'd be a fun fight because of the outsider connection.
Mhm.
But do you risk putting Kai in there with a guy that could potentially knock
You
him
do
out?
not.
Yeah,
You do
That's the
not.
thing.
exactly.
It can. You know, Kintaro can knock him out. And, you know, Kai has been
Yeah.
knocked out about a few times.
Also, that's like Fuji TV's worst nightmare. The guy covered in tattoos winning who refuses to wear a rash guard.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I did not. I totally forgot about that. Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh, imagine the guy just sitting there with all the tattoos with the trophy and on the Yogibo chair.
Yeah, they're gonna probably have to give him the tsunami treatment. Have him wear a digitally airbrushed rash guard.
I don't know. Remember when WCW when they blurred out the NWA title?
Yeah, I
you could
remember.
blur out all of Kintaro's chest, and you'll just see his head and his legs.
Yeah, that would be a nice little fuck you to Kintaro and his fans. But still, that would be a fun fight. If only we already knew that fight would not make it to the decision.
Oh, God. So yeah, that fight may not even be allowed to happen for all we know. Fuji,
Yeah,
maybe
because
like
Fuji TV would be dickish.
yeah. So they you know, I guess if that fight somehow does happen, it's gotta be like the first fight or something on on a Fuji TV card, because then then they can like edit it or whatever, or he'll force him.
He's won a rash guard in the past. It was Hiromoto that didn't want to wear the rash guard.
Yeah, I think he said he was happy now he didn't have to wear a rash guard. I think he said that in the pre-fight interviews. He was like, so when he was like, what are your thoughts about the fight? He's like, well, I'm happy I don't have to wear a rash guard this time, because it must suck. It really must suck to wear a rash guard. Like, it's already hot in those. Japanese arenas are hot for whatever reason. They never put on the AC, so you're already wearing the rash guard. So he's probably already much more like, it probably makes him much more tired, like, and sweating more and all that.
I mean, what do you to say? It's so hot that it made Boston Garden in the 80s feel like a sauna.
Yeah.
More 80s basketball references. More.
Yeah.
All of these is going over my head.
Yes.
Understood. I mean, you're only 20, Jack. You're going to learn about this a hell of a lot more than we expect you to. But
listen, I can make TikTok references that would go over your guys' heads, but I choose not to.
Understood. But the point of the matter of what Andrew's trying to make is all Japanese venues are hotter than a devil's asshole.
Basically. Code Mayday says the Japanese want Kai versus Inoue in the next round. Why do the 1 versus 2 in the quarter finals? What do you mean 1 versus 2?
They want that in the next round? I haven't heard anything about that. I actually thought that they wouldn't want that.
Christian, hold on. What Charles?
Okay.
Sorry. What was that, Charles?
I was unaware of the opposite, unless something has been announced. I was under the assumption that they did not want Inoue and Kai to fight in the next round because they want Kai in the finals no matter what, essentially.
That's what I kind of figured as well. RGIP also asks, is Otsuka the one who trash talked Kintaro? No, I think it was Kintaro who trash talked. I think kind of indirectly trash talked Shihan, because he was like overlooking Shihan, and like he was like, Otsuka, I look forward to seeing you in the next round, and like Shihan's like, they're like, what about me, homie? And I think also I asked Shihan about that. He was like, yeah, I trained with Kintaro before. I was like kind of like insulted that like this guy who I trained with before like just is like, oh, he's just gonna totally overlook me. So I think that's what you're thinking of. Sorry, Christian, what were you gonna say before?
But yeah, why would it make sense? I mean, whose bright idea would be to put the top 2 seeds in your tournament into a fight in the damn quarterfinals? It doesn't make sense.
Especially since there's already like a clear main event. It's going to be the Satoshi fight.
Mm-hmm.
And
Listen,
so why would you wouldn't need another big fight?
None of this would matter if we just had Imanari in here. He doesn't have tattoos. He would be the number 1 seed. He'd be the most interesting fight out of everybody. So You know, if Imanari had won, none of this would be talking points.
It's the Andrew flavor of the week. It was Xian last week, and now it's Imanari this week.
Oh,
we
Imanari's my flavor.
We could get more VTR footage of Imanari grappling with Shinyoki naked in a bathhouse.
I'm surprised they didn't interview Aoki for this. You know, I'm surprised the absence of Aoki.
His voice is no longer picked up by video or audio.
Yes, you know
it's
how
too low and gravelly.
They probably did interview him, but because his voice is so hoarse from smoking 10 packs a day, they couldn't subtitle it for the Japanese audience. So they're just like, let's just delete this. Nobody can understand him. It's totally indecipherable. RGIP has a good point. He says maybe people want to see them fight with no damage. So kind of like, I see what he's saying. So instead of going to the finals after facing off against whoever, they fight before the finals, so they kind of just have like a fresh fight. I can see that. That's not illogical.
Well,
right.
I mean,
why does he think they're fighting? Is that what the Wikipedia thing says, or is there?
Yeah, people go. Listen, don't go by the Wikipedia. The Wikipedia is bullshit 90% of the times, and
it's also only on the American Wikipedia, English Wikipedia. If you go to the Japanese Wikipedia, that bracket doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So the bracket's just showing that just to show people who's in the next round, even though it's maybe somewhat of a misleading visual representation.
Yeah, don't count it, please.
I mean, it's clear that they want to save that matchup, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if people want to see the matchup just simply because they would be like eager to see it. Because I mean, even if you intentionally book something to, you know, lead to a certain final, you're still taking a gamble that shit can hit the fan at some point, right? So I mean, I would understand, and I don't know if people are saying this, but I would understand if people want to see the fight just because, hey, we can make the fight, so let's make the fight. I mean, but I totally get why Rizin likely will not do that until the finals.
Look what happened with this show. We had a proposed final, and look what it almost got screwed up, like right at the very beginning.
In Bellator's light heavyweight Grand Prix earlier this year, in the opening round, they booked Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Yoel Romero, and Scott Coker's reasoning was, well, we can make the fight, so we're going to make the fight because we don't know down the line if we ever can make the fight. Ironically, that fight never happened. So
and like literally the week of like I was so
Yoel Romero fail his medical check. He wasn't licensed to fight, right?
And then Anthony Johnson got arrested for robbery in Connecticut or something, or like stealing someone's
credit card fraud.
Yeah, credit card fraud. It was like a 2019 credit card incident.
Oh yeah, there was a warrant out for his arrest, and he just so happened.
Apparently, the marijuana business isn't as successful as we thought it would be.
Code Mayday has a good point. If anybody's a chance, if they do the picking the opponent's thing, he says that he will pick Kai, and that's probably what will happen anyway. So the fight's destined to happen somewhere down the line.
Mm-hmm.
I get for the finals, I think that's what Rizin wants to, but I also get having it beforehand because you can do it. That, you know, I think Jack brought up the best that why book it now if you have him. You know, obviously we'll hope nothing goes wrong. I don't think Naoki anyway or Kai are going to get arrested for credit card fraud, so we don't have to worry about that or fail the medicals.
I think, unfortunately, you're going to see some fighters get kind of babied in the next round because they need them for Fuji TV ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, certain fighters, like Kai is the only one in the tournament Fuji TV cares about, and they need him to be in the tournament for it to make sense on New Year's Eve.
What about is Inoue not even like, even though his stock has gone up, is he still not like Fuji TV material, I guess?
Well, I'm a big fan of Naoki Inoue, but it'd be like foolish to say that he's on the same level, the same plane of existence that Kai Asakura is. And Kai Asakura has well over 1 million YouTube subscribers and a massive presence. He's the cover of numerous magazines all the time. His brother's super famous. So Kai Asakura and Mikuru are insanely popular. Naoki Inoue is becoming more popular, but before this tournament, he hadn't fought in Japan in a long time. He had gone to the UFC, he had fought in other promotions, and he's a quiet guy. So he had never really penetrated the Japanese conscience, kind of. He was always kind of like Mizuki's younger brother. but this tournament has really highlighted him, and he's like kind of come into his own.
Charlie, would you say that there's a the list of people that Fuji TV really wants is quite short, in the sense that, you know, you can probably, you know, list them off the top of your head that they want Tenshin, they want Kai, they want Mikuru, you know?
We can do it right now. It's very, you've almost said the whole list.
I'm halfway through, basically.
They want
even
Mikuru.
more.
They want Kai. They want Tenshin. They want Horiguchi. They want Rena. That is the list.
That is it, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Kana Asakura.
Kind of. She's got those airplane sponsors, right? Does she like?
She got a TikTok sponsor.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, in Pantene Pro V. But I mean, the Rena, Kai, Mikuru, Tenshin, Horiguchi. Those are the big people. Those are the people that everyone cares about and knows about.
I see. So. Oh well, so it seems like the stack is. That kind of sucks though, because now it's it seems like now that you said all that, now it's like they basically have to make it for the New Year's Eve final at this point.
No, they don't have to make it for the final necessarily, because I mean, you really only have to baby. I mean, you don't have to baby. It's like a prerogative term. You just have to you do what you do in a tournament. You put the high seeds, you seed them, and you put the high seeds against the low seeds in the next round. And that'll inevitably lead with Kai. I mean, it doesn't, I think they would like him to make it to the finals, but it doesn't matter if he loses in the semifinals. It's the same event. People are going to be watching it nonetheless. And so just getting people to the finals.
But do you think that maybe they want to get them to the finals because
they want to keep the viewers interested?
Well, because the semifinals won't be airing live on Fuji. They'll probably be a highlight package they air beforehand.
And they probably want to, they want to keep people on the channel. And New Year's Eve,
because if people find out like, oh, Kai got eliminated earlier tonight, they might just not tune in to the New Year's Eve broadcast. Like, I'll watch something else.
Well, I would imagine most of the New Year's Eve will be broadcast, because people, it's hard to explain, but New Year's Eve TV is like the biggest night for TV in Japan. I would describe New Year's as probably the biggest holiday in Japan. And the New Year's Eve TV is like a giant competition. You have like the downtown comedians, like that famous like Don't Laugh show, what they do, where they try not to laugh for 24 hours. Then there's, I think the most popular show is a giant singing competition. And so like New Year's Eve is just cutthroat TV ratings. And so that is the show where Rizin has to pull out all the stops, try to get good numbers.
And we can't forget the best show on New Year's Eve, Gaki no Sakai.
My personal favorite is Ame Talk. I like it when they have this whole thing where they make unathletic comedians compete in athletics. And it's very hilarious to watch.
Are you saying you don't enjoy seeing Masahiro Chono slap around Jose? I can watch that 1,000 times and still laugh every time.
I mean, we have TiVo essentially. We record all that stuff and watch it because it's all great. It's all gold. All the crazy stuff they do on New Year's Eve.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if they were to do a one-night tournament with 2 rounds, they would have the first round early in the night, right?
Absolutely. If it's a tournament,
so I guess my idea is that I think they might want to give Kai favorable bookings in the next 2 rounds, because if they can't get him on live TV, that would possibly lose.
I agree with you 100%. I was just trying to like say that they don't necessarily have to, but I mean, it sounds bad to say they're babying Kai, whereas he legitimately is one of the top seeds in the tournament. And so the way that I feel that tournaments are normally booked is you put the top seeds against the low seeds. And so the final match is the top seeds against each other. So that's probably what's going to happen.
And I don't think babying is necessarily bad, because I mean, even if you are a top seed, stuff can happen. It's MMA,
exactly.
You know.
Oh, so
last event showed that Rizin 29.
All promotions baby the people that they depend on.
Koji comes out of nowhere and headbutts Kai as he's going to the ring.
We've seen Bellator baby MVP for many years. We've seen UFC try to baby Sage Northcutt.
One FC did not baby Sage Northcutt.
Oh no,
Sage, no. They just posted his knockout clip like again yesterday.
They sent him to the geriatric ward.
You should definitely win this, Sage. This guy's only a kickboxer. He's got no MMA experience. You'll be fine.
With one, listen, they babied the Lees, or at least Angela Lee. So yeah,
one has horrible luck with building people up. Like something just always happens that derails someone's hype train, and it's awful because it's not even like they're doing a bad job with some of these bookings. Some of these bookings are like, okay, this is a gimme, and then something just happens.
You mean you didn't think that Rika Ishige could beat Angela Lee?
No, I just think that it didn't make sense to book Ritu Fogat in a random fight 1 month before her tournament.
A week, like 2 weeks before the tournament was supposed to happen,
and ruin her undefeated record before the atomweight Grand Prix.
Also, I didn't realize it. She's insanely famous in India. She has like a
her
giant social media presence. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Why? They were just bragging about having their new Indian heavyweight champion. Why would you get rid of your other Indian potential future superstar?
It's insane that they don't treat. Sorry, go ahead.
In the case of Arjan Singh Bluhar, he's Indian Canadian.
True, but I mean, he's one FC athlete, so they eliminate any Western heritage, and you're automatically whatever Eastern heritage they can put on you. I mean,
I think that
Angela Lee's Singaporean, despite being Canadian, Hawaii, being born in Canada and living in Hawaii.
It's surprising how they don't hype up Ritu as much as they do, because there's a movie about her family. There's a famous movie about her family, so it's just like they're treating her like she's some random
Olympic
person.
athlete. Her dad was a big deal, and all of her sisters and her are a big deal. Because I was looking into the tournament, and I was analyzing all of their social media pages, and you're like, oh, this girl's got 2,000 followers. This girl's got 1,500 followers. This girl has 700,000 followers. You're like, what the hell? Like, what the hell is going on here? This is like a very strange anomaly. But no, ONE FC messes it up. So.
And also, I think a prime example, when they tried to have Stamp Fairtex go over Janet Todd, and that was like an ultimate fail. It just totally just like, and they tried to like rehab Stamp Fairtex. I think they gave her like a very easy fight after her next fight.
My favorite ONE FC moment of all time is like Andre Arlovsky versus Tim Sylvia 4, I think, where they had just had that terrible incident where I think Roger Huerta got soccer kicked and it looked like he was dead. Like he was already knocked out and the guy soccer kicked him, and ONE FC was like, maybe we shouldn't have soccer kicks. And so then they had a stupid rule where you could only soccer kick if the referee allowed you to do it. The referee would be like, you're good to go, kick his head off. So Tim Silva, Andre Arlovsky was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to soccer kick him no matter what. So he knocked Tim Silva down and soccer kicked him and got disqualified. It just did not care. He was like, yep, that ends the series.
That puts the kibosh on it.
I was like, that is the greatest one, the most ONE FC thing of all time.
We can talk about that damn one championship all day off air. But before we get out of here and, save ourselves for September with Rizin 30, we got to talk about Shintaro Ishiwatari. And, he announced his retirement on a recent Rizin Confessions video. And if there's one word you would say to describe Shintaro Ishiwatari's career, what would it be and why?
Charles?
One word, badass. He's a tough guy. Ishiwatari is exciting. I'm glad to see. If you on Twitter, this isn't one word, but Insune Inoue and his girlfriend went to the hospital with their fighter Sudario, and they said that they saw Ishiwatari in the hospital, and he was having a lot of trouble. He was having a lot of trouble with his balance. He seemed to be very affected by the knockout. And if you watch the Rizin Confession video, he is very clearly complaining of a headache and how much pain he was in. And I think he made the smart move and retired before he takes too much damage.
How about you, Jack?
Okay.
One word, probably journey. this guy, he had a long career, and he had a very respectable career, and it was one that, quite honestly, if it ends here, it ended at a very good spot. I think that he when you look at the people he fought in the past few years, he's fought very high level talent in the JMMA scene. And, to think that that's how your career ends, that's not how most careers end. Most careers end with you facing the guys who are, on the up, and guys that don't really have much name recognition at the time, at least. To think that he's had this amazing journey throughout his whole career and it ends here, that's a pretty respectable way to end it. And it's a way that, shows that from start to finish, he was in the scene. It was never, is it time to hang it up? But now that he has, the journey's over, but it's a very respectable one.
I'll make my words quick. Yeah, I agree with both Jack and Charles. Badass. He'll never he never had a boring fight. I can say that for a fact. How about you, Christian?
I'll close it out by saying that the dude was a one-of-a-kind superstar. I mean, the dude was a King of Pancrase champion who just simply kicked ass, took names, and took Kyoji Horiguchi to the limit twice. I mean, yeah, he didn't win the big one in Rizin, but he did show a lot of heart, a lot of courage, and a lot of capability just to prove himself to all the doubters and all the people that, didn't really see him as anything. That's all I can say. And I guess now with Andrew, not displaying himself anymore, I can go ahead and say that after we reviewed everything, Rizin 29 to me was not underwhelming, but not overwhelming either. It was kind of a mixed bag because you had almost all the kickboxing bouts into the finish. You had none of the MMA bouts into the finish. And to me, I think that Rizin could have done better with those MMA bouts. CJ, Jack, what say y'all?
I think when you look back on Rising in 2021, Rising 29 will probably be the forgotten card that happened. There were some good fights on it, but I think it was kind of like a checkbox. There's some tournament fights we got to get done. We got to do this stuff before the Olympics. Let's Frankenstein this card together, get the tournament moving, get a nice, exciting kickboxing tournament done, and then we can actually worry about the show in September that's going to be on Fuji TV.
Mm-hmm. Jack?
When I think about this card and I think about all the fights in it, this might sound sort of negative, and I don't want it to be taken this way, but the outcome of really every single fight on this card, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. The winner of all the Grand Prix bouts, the winner for whoever wins each bout, I don't think it would make a huge change in things. The kickboxing tournament was a one-night thing, which didn't really have any real impact on the scene. I mean, we got a big fight in the end, but there was no title, there was no grand thing involved. This was, it was a good show, and I think the matchups on it were pretty good. And like Charles said earlier, we suffer from that Rizin 28 hangover, which makes us think about how such an amazing card was only 2 weeks ago, and now we have this, and I think that makes us more negative than we maybe should be. But with everything being said, this wasn't the biggest card ever, but certainly not the worst I've ever seen, and certainly not one that I walk away from being like, oh, that was a waste of my time. I still thought it was an experience.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And Andrew, if you can still hear us, can you give us your quick thoughts about this card?
Yeah, I don't know if this was the worst card. I still think that Rizin 12 was the worst. Sorry guys, I'm like cleaning out my eye as like, because I don't know what happened with it. But yeah, I thought this was not the worst card. I think it was more a little bit, it was kind of like, how when your father says, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. It was kind of like that. It's like that. It's like, I think also this card should have been switched. This should have been the first card, then they should have done the Tokyo Dome show card, and which was initially going to happen because of the state of emergency. But I don't know. I always believe, in delivering, and under usually these cards that are like don't look good on paper tend to be good, but when they're not good, unfortunately, it's a little bit. Yeah, it's just a little bit more sad, kind of disappointing. So yeah, I don't think it was the worst card. Just more, I was hoping for a lot more, and it could have been like Rizin 12, which I still contend it's still, I think, legitimately the worst Rizin show because of like all the things that happened on that card. Just like we're not supposed to happen. Yashi losing, and other than a fond flute choke, as Charles said, there was really nothing memorable about that card.
Well, that's all understandable, but hey, we got a lot of time to prepare for September, and we hope that all of you, the Rizin Fighting Federation fan base, as well as our own We Are Rizin fan base, hope to enjoy it all with us. Now, instead of giving out shout outs and plugs, I'm going to just ask, CJ, you're on Twitter at CJ_Sogukaku, right? And we can go to sogukaku.net.
.com, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. .com for more information about upcoming Japanese combat sporting events, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Jack, we can follow you on Twitter at Knockdown News and at Jack Wannan, and we can check out knockdownnews.com for more info about future combat sports events, right?
Of course, and thank you for having me on today. Just like last time, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, hey, y'all are both welcome anytime. You all can check out Andrew on Twitter at abenja1 and follow his coverage on MMAsucka.com, MMAsucka.com for more exciting fight stories to come, especially given the fact that we're all going to be taking time off due to the Olympics that nobody wants. I'm going to be on Twitter at ChrisGary92 and try and follow up on the Focus Fights account at Focus_Fights on Twitter, and hopefully getting the website at focusfights.world underway, hopefully within these next 90 days or by the time Rizin 30 rolls around. But other than that, we thank y'all for joining us. We thank y'all for checking the show out. We thank y'all for being a part of the We Are Rizin Fan Nation. And we are thankful that you're just as big of combat sports fans as we are. You can follow the show handle at We Are Rizin Pod. That's WeAreRizinPod, all in one word. You can check out the show on Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well for more great interviews done by Andrew Benjamin and myself, the Chillmeister Chris Gary. But other than that, I think it's about that time. So for Jack Wannan, Charles Jewett, Andrew Benjamin, and myself, J. Christian Gary, the Chillmeister, we thank y'all for joining us on another edition of the We Are Rizin podcast. And as the great Lenny Hart always likes to say, and we out. Peace, my peoples in one love world. We will see y'all when we see y'all.